Welcome to the
Recording
August
in
24th,
progress.
2022 meeting of the Oceanside City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask our city clerk to call roll, please.
Mayor Sanchez.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Kime. Here. Councilmember Jensen. Here. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Weiss. Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the invocation. Tonight we have Pastor Sheldon Brown from the Cause of Christ Church. Yes, that would be great, to do our invocation. Thank you, Pastor
Thank you,
Sheldon.
Mayor. Thank you, council members, distinguished guests. Let us pray. Father God, we come before you this evening. We are grateful and thankful for all that you have done for us. We have been blessed with so much. Let us remember that as we give back to those who are in need through the city, the council meetings, Lord, and for all of those who are out to protect us. We ask God for protection over everyone in this city and the staff. We ask, Father God, that you will help us understand your purpose and your will, not just for this city, but for all of humanity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And Pastor Sheldon, if you would join me here in the middle here. Thank you. And actually, I'd like to ask Lieutenant Valdovinos to join me, as well as Esmeralda and, Naomi, who's your wife, right? If she could join us here. Pastor Sheldon, I figured you wouldn't see the agenda.
No.
Yeah. So this is kind of a surprise. Pastor Sheldon has been with us in the city of Oceanside and has worked so hard for our youth for so many years that it's really proper now to be able to celebrate and really honor this man who has never hesitated to help out with our youth throughout our city, not just one neighborhood, but throughout our city. So I do have a proclamation. Surprise. And this time I'm prepared. It says, Proclamation in honor of Pastor Sheldon Brown, Oceanside Community Service Spirit and Dedication. And yes, whereas Pastor Sheldon Brown served honorably in the U.S. Marine Corps for 9 years, and upon honorable discharge worked for the Oceanside Boys and Girls Club for 12 years, dedicating his life to youth, especially at-risk youth of the city of Oceanside. And whereas in May 2015, Pastor Sheldon with his wife Naomi started the Cause of Christ Church with a focus on outreach and community building. And whereas Pastor Sheldon has been serving the needs of others throughout his life, and specifically in the John Landis neighborhood since 2015, when he was asked to serve this community by Lieutenant Taurino Valdovinos of the Oceanside Police Department. And whereas Pastor Sheldon's commitment to organizations like Save Our Streets has made an impact on our community through youth counseling and food distributions throughout Oceanside, including during the pandemic. And whereas Pastor Sheldon has provided safe and healthy alternative activities to youth in the John Landis area and throughout Oceanside by hosting basketball tournaments, cup stacking competitions, Easter egg hunts, Christmas toy giveaways, neighborhood cleanups, and other events. And whereas Pastor Sheldon has been a valued supporter of the city of Oceanside for many years and has made the first responder banquet possible to honor our police and fire departments. And whereas Pastor Sheldon has worked with the city's library, neighborhood services, and parks and recreation departments to connect with the residents of the John Landis area to reactivate the John Landis Community Center. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Esther C. Sanchez, on behalf of the city of Oceanside, do hereby proclaim today, August 24th, 2022, as Pastor Sheldon Brown Day in the city of Oceanside, with much appreciation for his dedication to the youth of our city and for his literally thousands of hours of volunteer work. We commend Pastor Sheldon for his community service, spirit, and dedication to our community. I'm going to hand this to you, but I'm going to hand the mic over to Lieutenant Valdovinos.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'll be quick. So I have known Pastor Sheldon since I was 15 years old. 15. I'm 46 now. He was the campus security at Carlsbad High School, trying to catch me slipping, which he didn't do. But what the mayor said was accurate. About 10 years ago, he came to me and he said he had just left his congregation, and he said, you know, I don't know where I'm gonna go. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And there was a need in the Tri-City area for some direction out there. And I mentioned that to Pastor Sheldon, and within a month or so, he had already established something going on out there, the Cause of Christ Church, and he's got a huge following. He holds basketball tournaments, which I try to play in on a yearly basis. But he has done such a fantastic job out there that he really, really deserves this. On top of that, I've always told him that before my time here ends, I am going to try my darndest to get a gymnasium built at John Landis Park in his honor. Thank you.
Esmeralda.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Esmeralda Gonzalez, and I'm a professional assistant for the Oceanside Public Library. For the last couple of months, I have had the great privilege to be able to work alongside a true pillar of the Oceanside community, Pastor Sheldon Brown. Pastor Sheldon played a vital role in helping with the reopening of the John Landis Resource Center. From food distributions to street cleanups, Pastor Sheldon and his church have worked endlessly to serve the John Landis residents and demonstrate the true definition of community. Pastor Sheldon, we thank you for all the work you do to help our Oceanside communities. Leaders like you truly are the heart of Oceanside, and for that, we thank you.
Thank you, and I'm now going to hand the mic over to you for a few words. Yeah.
Well, wow, you surprised me again. All right. It's not good to surprise Marines, but it's all good. You know, this is what it's all about. For those who don't know, born and raised in Chicago in the inner city, drugs and alcohol since the age of 10. Joined the Marine Corps to escape. Mom signed me up at the age of 17 to ensure that I got out of the city alive. Number 7 out of 8 kids. I saw a difference that could be made in this city when I first landed here in 1981. And when I was when I got out of the Marine Corps in 1990, started working for the Boys and Girls Club and Carlsbad Unified School District at the same time. And then a friend of mine, Wayne Godney, everyone knows, he still thinks I work for him. But but he's such a good friend. Whatever he asks, I'm there for him to support him. But it's about the children in this community. I currently work for the school district, now mentoring students as well. And it's all about giving back. I've been given so much. My wife and I have been given so much. We have 5 beautiful children, 4 grandchildren. We've been married 35 years in December. But all of that because of what God has did in our lives. Who am I to try to keep it to myself? I must give it back to someone. So thank you for allowing me to give back to this great city of Oceanside. I enjoy all that I do. Yes, I get tired at times, and yes, I do feel overwhelmed, but that's when God gives me a little bit more to keep going for. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I just want to add here that for many of these years that have passed, it has been Pastor Sheldon and his wife Naomi's church that has really helped to fund many of his efforts at John Landis. Basketball equipment, you know, things that the kids really need. He didn't come knocking on the city. He did it through his church. the Christmas giveaways, all of that. This is from his heart. This is a guy that not only talks the talk, but really, really walks the walk, in such a great role model. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Pastor Sheldon. We're going to go ahead and take a picture.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Naomi's mom is here too, so thank you. I know it's a family affair, so thank you. Now I'd like to call up Gumaro. Main Street. And this is a proclamation in honor of the 15th anniversary of the Sunset Market and the 30th, wow, 30th anniversary of the Oceanside Farmers Market. And all of this really due to Main Street.
Yes, Main Street, not me.
Well, yeah, try to say that to a lot of people, right? Where's Rick? No. Okay, so this says, whereas Main Street Oceanside has shared a valuable and close bond with the city of Oceanside, working together toward a vision of the downtown business community as a cultural and historic heart of the city, attracting Oceanside residents and visitors alike. And whereas 15 years ago, Main Street Oceanside agreed to take over the city's farmers market, with the goal of making it a larger sustainable event, offering a valuable opportunity for farmers and business owners to provide local produce to our communities. And whereas Main Street Oceanside has greatly expanded the Oceanside Farmers Market at no cost to the city, providing a critical source of food, especially during the COVID pandemic. And whereas Main Street Oceanside came up with a vision for an evening market that would further bring the citizens back to our historic downtown, encouraging new businesses to invest and flourish, attracting residents and tourists from near and far. And whereas the Sunset Market became an instant success, not just during the summer months, but throughout the year, greatly contributing to the economic development of our city. And whereas this month, August 2022, Main Street Oceanside is celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Oceanside Farmers Market and the 15th anniversary of Sunset Market. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Esther C. Sanchez, on behalf of the City of Oceanside, do hereby declare August 2022 as Main Street Oceanside Farmers Market and Sunset Market Month in the City of Oceanside. In celebration of 30 years and 15 years success, respectively, with deep congratulations and gratitude to Main Street Oceanside for these events' great achievement. May Main Street Oceanside continue your successful endeavors in our city's cultural and historic district.
Thank you.
Say, you know, when 15 years, I guess it was 15 years ago, Main Street came to the city and said, okay, we want to do a sunset market, an evening market. And they said they want to do it throughout the year. I thought, oh, how can they sustain that? You know, I mean, we barely had people coming downtown. So I thought, well, geez, you know, summer would be really cool because we have people come through Oceanside, tons of people coming through Oceanside. But throughout the year, and you know what, they did it. And it was fantastic to see all of this work, all of this, you know, and volunteers, a lot of volunteers. Organizing that many volunteers takes tremendous amount of time, effort, and investments. And thank you so much, Main Street Oceanside, for making Oceanside this real, you know, helping to make Oceanside this really fantastic place that everybody wants to come downtown now.
Thank you. I want to thank the city for collaborating with Main Street Oceanside during these years. We wouldn't be doing this without you guys, and PD has been very supportive with us too, so thank you guys. And the community, the volunteers, we take enormous people to run this market. We have 20 plus employees, and we have over 10 employees on a regular basis, 10 volunteers on a regular basis there. So thank to the community for coming out and enjoying downtown and make it a family-oriented place, which is the key, #1 reason why we started the Sunset Market, was for the community. And we thank you guys for coming out every Thursday, supporting our vendors and supporting our downtown merchants as you guys are down there. So thank you guys for your time, and we hope to see you guys tomorrow.
And Main Street always has events going on.
We do.
So can you talk
Yes.
about one on Saturday? And
Of course, thank you. So I've been here talking about Art That Excites is one of the programs on their Main Street. We just completed our 4th mural on their phase 1 of this program. It's a mosaic mural, will be located on Mission Avenue and Ditmar Street. We have a ribbon cutting, a celebration of this mosaic mural that was created by the community. We had over 70 donors that raised money to put this together, and we had the community come to Don Meyer's shop, cut the glass, shape it, and put it on the board. Actually, Councilmember Mayor Peter Weiss was there the first workshop, and then finished off by Mayor Esther Sanchez here. So it was really awesome to see the support from our elected officials here. But we invite you guys, come out on Saturday at 2 o'clock. From 2 to 4, we have a couple of workshops. We have a glass coaster workshop where you put together some glass. The Oceanside Glass and Tile Company will take it back and bring it back to us. You guys can pick it up. It's a nice little coaster. And we have a coloring workshop where your kids can color the mosaic itself. So we come out and have a good time there. And we have a cookie bar from Oceanside Kitchen Collaborative and refreshments as well. So come out and enjoy a nice afternoon. And you guys can see a really beautiful mosaic mural, which is, I believe, is the largest in North County, if not the county of San Diego. So come check it out. It'll be a lot of fun. And there'll be also Robert Parker, a local artist, performing that day as well. So hope to see you guys there on Saturday.
And a Taste of Oceanside tickets still available?
Only a few, guys. It's unbelievable the demand on Taste of Oceanside, which will be taking place on September 30th and October 1st. The September 30th is the VIP event on the rooftop of Pierside South. And we'll have a great chef from LTH, Chef Daniel Elliott being the chef of the night. And then we'll have a performer, and the bar will be served by Senor Grubbies. So come out and enjoy that event. We will have about 40 to 50 tastings. We have sold already 800 tickets, so we only have 1,000 tickets available. So get your tickets now, because I don't think they'll last another couple weeks. So thanks again to the community. So it has been awesome to work with you guys.
And congratulations on your new baby, by the way, again.
I can show you a video if you guys want.
I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, congratulations. We now have employee appreciation or service awards, yes.
Right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm Alma Sanchez with the Human Resources Department, and this evening I have the honor and pleasure of presenting to you employees who have reached the noteworthy accomplishment of 20 or more years of service with the City of Oceanside. So as we've done in the past, I will call the respective department head to join Mayor Sanchez to present the awards. At this time, I'd like to call Robert O'Brien, HR Director, to the dais. So the first employee to be recognized is from Human Resources and IT. That person is Diana Ferris.
Come on down, Diana Ferris.
Diana began working with the City of Oceanside in 1995 in a part-time capacity and became a full-time employee in 1999. She served in finance as a senior office specialist and office services technician. In 2011, she transitioned to IT as a call center coordinator, where she currently serves. Please join me in congratulating Diana for 20 years of service to our community. Thank you, Diana. Our next employee is Brian West. Brian began his career in May 2008 as a seasonal lifeguard during summer breaks. Brian became a lab technician in 2002 in water utilities. While in the water utilities department, Brian worked as a lab analyst and an associate chemist before becoming an applications analyst in our HR IT department. Brian currently serves as an application analyst 3. Let's congratulate Brian for 20 years of service. Thanks, Brian. Our final recipient to be recognized tonight has achieved 25 years of service in our police department. Chief Armijo, will you please come forward to present this award? That person is Sean Marchand. Sean launched his career with the City of Oceanside Police Department in July 1997. Sean has served as a police officer, police sergeant, police lieutenant, and promoted to police captain in 2015. As a police captain, Sean has responsibility of overseeing finance and training, special operations, motors, neighborhood policing team, crime suppression team, traffic, school resource, and harbor police. Let's congratulate Sean on his 25 years of service. Thank you, Sean. That concludes tonight's service awards. On behalf of the City of Oceanside, congratulations to everyone recognized this evening. Thank you for your continued commitment to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Closed session report.
Thank you. The council met in closed session at 3:30 to discuss item 1 on the agenda, conference with labor negotiator involving the status of negotiations with the Oceanside Firefighters Association. There's no action under the Brown Act to report on item 1. Item 2 is conference with legal counsel on existing litigation involving the Travelers Casualty Insurance Company. That case was not heard and will be continued to the next council meeting. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Next are the consent calendar items 4 through 24. Do we have any requests to pull from the public?
The public has requested to pull items 12, 16, 17, 19, and 22.
I'll move approval for the balance.
Thank you. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 12. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask if anyone else wanted to pull an item. Well, it looks like no. Okay. Item number 12 is approval of Amendment 3 to the Professional Services Agreement with eSource Companies, LLC, in the amount of $436,000 for a revised contract amount of $1.9 million for data management support for the advanced metering infrastructure project and authorization for the city manager to execute the amendment. And do we have
Connie Chapman?
this one?
Yes, either or.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I want to comment on number 12, excuse me, because if you go to the city's website and you look at Pure Water Oceanside, it looks like that the city is on the right track for giving us citizens the water that we need, and they've created some new options for the infrastructure. The website boasts, and I quote, "Pure Water Oceanside will purify recycled water to create a new and local source of high-quality drinking water that is clean, safe, drought-proof, and environmentally sound. The program will produce enough water to provide more than 30% of the water supply. This is exactly the steps that the citizens are expecting out of the quality staff using taxpayer dollars to solve big city problems." If you click, excuse me, on the news portion of the city's website, in the e-newsletter archives, the last update was May of 2021, and it states, once fully developed, Pure Water Oceanside will supply 3 to 5 million gallons of drinking water each day. This is enough to provide 32% of the city of Oceanside's water supply. So I have to question what the smart meter program brings to us. It seems to be a little bit too invasive, and it's my understanding that me and my neighbors are going to be offered options to opt out of this. One issue that I have with the smart meter program is the data collection. And how is that data going to be labeled? I label it a little bit invasive, surveillance-like, and what are you going to do with those? And since we don't have the transparency of what the data is that's being collected and how it's going to be used or stored, I think all of those details need to be an important issue for all of our elected officials. In my reviewing of the archived footage of past council member meetings, I remember Representative Corey Jensen stating, privacy is so important in our Constitution, it is mentioned at least 7 times. Our founders understood unnecessary government overreach, and I think this is one of those. May I suggest that you create a link for opting out of the smart meter program on the Pure Water Oceanside portion of the website? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the only speaker we have on this item.
Okay. Is there a motion? No other speakers.
No, that was the only speaker.
Yeah. I move approval. Motion and second, please vote.
Motion approved, 4-1. Jensen, no.
Thank you. Item number 16 is award of a public works agreement in the amount of $245,400 to A.B. Hashmi, Inc. of San Diego for the Prince Memorial Skate Park Improvement Project, and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement upon receipt of all supporting documents. And the request is from Mr. Joe Hill.
Good evening, everybody, Mayor, City Council. So finally, after a year, we're going to get new equipment and bring us in kind of into the present as far as the facilities at that park. And that's a good thing. I was wondering, though, we're gonna put the new green flush right on top of the old pit. We're not gonna put a septic tank in or do anything like that. Is that correct?
Do we have?
If anyone knows. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because we're gonna get running water there now. And running water, we don't have there. I'm not sure if Public Works people have actually done a study to see how fast that pit's gonna fill up with running water all the time, because we don't have it there now. And if Public Works is gonna be the one that pumps it out more frequently, has that been factored into the cost of all of this? Which I don't have a problem with the cost because there's an account, the Prince account that's out there. Is that gonna be charged to that account if that's the case? And then the other question is when is sewer going to be hooked up, and is that also going to be charged to that account when the sewer is hooked? That was it.
So he's got 3 questions, and we have someone to answer those questions.
Yes, I can answer those questions for you. So for your first question.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Sorry, I apologize. My name's Kimberly Corbin. I'm an associate engineer with the City of Oceanside and the project manager over this job. So you might have to remind me of your questions as I go along, but the first question, I believe, was regarding the pumping of the facility. So the new green flush restroom will include its own vault. So the vault is it will be a larger vault than what's currently there. So we are doing 2 unisex restrooms. That vault will be large enough to ensure enough to the point. Sorry, I apologize. Let me restart. The vault has a capacity with the running water to be serviced at about the same amount of time as the current vault is getting serviced. There will be more pumping involved during each of the services, and those costs have been accounted for in the Public Works Department.
Okay.
I believe.
Because it can get stinky real fast if it fills up.
Correct. So the other thing we did to help alleviate some of that is there are waterless urinals in both of the unisex restrooms and the amount of water that is used to flush those new toilets is limited. And then second question, sorry if you don't mind repeating.
Sewer cost and when?
Sewer costs, as far as sewer, so the vault has the capacity to connect to sewer when that becomes available. I am unaware of that timeline, and I'll refer over to Jonathan Borrego for that timeline.
Honorable Mayor and council members. So yes, as Kimberly mentioned, the system is designed to eventually hook up to the sewer system. I don't have a time frame available as to when sewer might be accommodated at that location. But as Kimberly mentioned, there will be a water supply that's hooked up to this facility, which doesn't exist today, which will be a significant improvement. And then, of course, as you may recall, the entire system is going to be powered by solar power as well. So that's how there will be electricity fed to the site, including some enhanced lighting out there as well.
The last question was the cost of the sewer when it's hooked up. Is that going to be charged to the same account, or are we going to have another budget for that? Or
that really has yet to be determined, Mr. Hill.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rodriguez?
I actually had it on my list to pull this, but it was already pulled by the public. Really excited for this item. It's a much needed improvement to the facilities at Prince Park. I'm very thankful for my colleagues on the dais, and especially Councilmember Jensen, and really prioritizing this for her district and the youth that regularly use Prince Park. It's going to have drinking fountains. It's going to have the bathroom facilities they need. We got some shade sails put up. I've actually recently had conversations with the potential developer in that area that wants to kind of look at potential partnerships of adopting this park in their homeowners association that they set up potentially, and covering all the maintenance costs and potentially covering the costs for sewer hookups or whatever could be negotiated with that. They really want this park to stand out and even improve it. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities to partner with the private sector to ensure that not just tax dollars are being spent on the maintenance. We can partner with the private sector, and they're willing to come in and help out with that and cover some of those costs. My question for staff is, it looks like we're approving this today, and the goal, the green flush facilities, the retrofitted facilities are, I guess, ready by August is what staff report said, but we're looking to have this built by October. It's important to me that we meet that date, and so my question to staff is how likely are we to make that happen by October 2022 and have this ready to go? And then when do we plan on doing the ceremony for the renaming of the park?
Councilmember Rodriguez, Honorable Mayor and council members, the restroom is complete. So it is currently sitting in Green Flush's facilities in Washington. We did an inspection of the facility 2 weeks ago. Okay. We are still waiting to do the inspection of the vault. That is expected to happen in the next week or so. We have gotten on the schedule for Green Flush to deliver in October, and we've met with the selected contractor to see if they can make that date. We have been told that they have the abilities to make that date. And so we are confident at this time that we will be able to get those restrooms installed by the end of October.
Very good. And what sort of disruption are we going to cause to the skating community that use that facility regularly? Like, is the park going to be shut down for a period of time, and how long, so I can begin preparing that community for that potential shutdown?
So as of right now, we are looking to do the water service line before we take the bathroom out of service. And so we're looking at about a 2-week period of where we'll be demoing out the existing restroom and vault and actually installing the new restroom. It is a 1-day installation for the restroom installation, but like I said, there is some site preparations to get ready for that new restroom.
Okay, so about 2 weeks of disruption in October. Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions. I'd like to move approval on this item.
There's a motion and a second. Peter, did you want to speak? No? Okay. There's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you very much. Item number 17, award of a contract to Arnaz Engineering Contractors, Inc. of Anaheim for the Code Enforcement Relocation Phase 2 project in the amount of $189,900, appropriation of $552,000 from the Public Facilities Fund 503 and $231,000 from the Inclusionary Housing in Lieu Fund. authorization for the city engineer to execute change orders for up to $71,200 or 10% of the total project budget, and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement upon receipt of all supporting documents. And we have Mr. Joe Hill.
Joe Hill again. So my basic question is, why are we taking $231,000 out of the inclusionary housing in lieu fund? Isn't that the phantom low-cost housing account for the city of Oceanside? Isn't that why we're collecting those in lieu fees for the low-income housing? And why is it coming out of that account to go into a code enforcement relocation?
Okay, it is also with a homeless shelter, but let's have staff respond to the question. Is that all? Is that the only question you have?
That's
okay,
it.
Thank you. Ms. Hines, are you going to be responding to this?
Absolutely. So we are taking over $200,000 to help with some of those costs. That's the attributable cost for the Low Barrier Navigation Center. So it is a shared facility. So for some of the infrastructure work that needs to be done on site, we're paying our fair share out of the inclusionary fund. And while the inclusionary housing, it is a housing fund, so any activity that helps with opportunities for lower income, inclusive of our unsheltered, is an eligible cost for inclusionary housing.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion? Motion and second, please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 19. Adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to implement and execute applications, standard agreements, and amendments or modifications thereto, as well as any other related documents for the permanent local housing allocation program. And we have Mr. Jimmy Knott.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. This item has come before us tonight. And I've been even brought today by a couple of seniors bringing up questions because of any increase in minimum Social Security is actually a decrease. And so what happens is when the Social Security happens, they get a increase in percentage of the CPI. So what happens is everybody wants to get their cut. And what happens is all the rents happen to go up. So does medical costs, food, everything else. And what happens to that senior, it's a net decrease. It costs them more to live. What I would like to see in any permanent local housing is link any rents that we have to a minimum Social Security or minimum VA. And absent of these goals that we would set forward, this would take and set forth to any provider saying, this is your minimum standard and you have to attain that. If you can't, go back to the drawing board and try again. It gives them a goal and an impetus to go forward to help our seniors, help our vets, those who take and have the minimum amount of life supporting income. I would urge you all to take and think about that because we're all basically one paycheck away from being in that same boat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knott. As I understand it, this item is on the agenda due to the change in our city manager person. So that's the only thing that's before us today. So I move approval. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 22 is adoption of a resolution approving the City of Oceanside investment policy. And who do we have?
We
Mr. Joe Hill?
have-
Oh, we got 3 people. Okay, thank you.
We have 5 speakers on this item.
5.
Our first speaker is Arlene Hammerschmidt, to be followed by Joe Hill, to be followed by Deborah Wanamaker, to be followed by Jimmy Knott.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Arlene Hammerschmidt, Rolish Fire Mountain. In its entirety, this item is not transparent. In fact, the title only refers to approving the city's investment policy. One thinks, reading that, not roles, not responsibilities of staff, plus it's buried in the consent calendar, which usually gets passed in bulk. If this is from the Treasury Division, you'd think the treasurer's signature would be on there instead of the city manager and assistant city manager. Buried in this item is also, staff recommending changes to their own roles and responsibilities without input from the City Investment Oversight Commission. That commission is the method of public input. So public input is being circumvented in this case. This is how public distrust in city governance builds and builds over time. This is sneaky, it's not transparent. All changes to our investment policies should go before the CIOC. Why were only 2 of 9 changes brought to the CIOC for review and input? This is suspicious also. I'm very uncomfortable with having staff recommend changes to their own roles and responsibilities, especially given recent revelations by Voice of San Diego just yesterday regarding one Treasury staff member who's decided to retire later. If there's any chance that he had input on these recommended changes to roles and responsibilities, they should be tabled, at least until the CIOC can review them and then return to council. This is a quote from the staff report. Treasury Division staff would take these roles and responsibilities and changes to the CIOC after and if the council approves it. That's inappropriate also. Shows a disrespect for public input again. Please remember, you are doing the public's business. Our input is necessary and valuable. We are to be respected. Please remember to keep us informed. I recommend approving the first 2 bullet points and referring the last 7 to the CIOC for review and input. The first 2 they've already reviewed. It says that right in the report. The second group of bullet points have not been reviewed by the CIOC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, everyone. So I read all 27 pages of this report. I think it's written.
Can you
very
identify
well
yourself for the record?
Pardon, excuse me.
Identify yourself for the record.
Joe Hill, sorry, 22-year Oceanside resident. Again, I've read the document today, all 27 pages. I think it's well written. I do have a couple of questions, though. It states that point 10 has been incorporated into points 8 and 9, but nowhere in point 8 or 9 does it have any language relating to what point 10 is on this document. So either we're going to continue the active management of the U.S. Treasury position, and probably it should be definitely assigned to the Financial Services Director, and that person can make the decision on what they want to do. But if we're not gonna put it in the document, it should be either discontinued and taken out, or not state that it's part of 8 and 9, because it's not. My reading comprehension is okay, I believe, and I can't find anything in any of those parts of 8 or 9 that shows the exact procedure that's currently done in point 10. Other than that, It's a good document. I do agree with the fact that even though it states here that some of these procedures that are being changed don't have any effect on the CIOC, they do really have an effect on the investment part that they are a part of when they have the meetings. So yes, it should be run by them and tell them what's going to happen and it changes. And then once that's done and they're told, then the council should vote on it. That was it. But the question on number 10 is, should it be in or should it be out? I think it should stay in and be part of the financial services director. So that's the question I have.
Thank you. Ms. Deborah Wanamaker? There.
Hi. My name is Deborah Wanamaker. I live at 899 River Tree Drive here in Oceanside, California. I am also the vice chair of the City of Oceanside Investment Committee, and I am strongly opposed to this resolution. We, the CIOC, never received any notice that this was in process and have had no input to it. Our bylaws state that under section 1.2 in part, members of the committees meet on a regular basis to review investment operations and assure compliance to California code requirements. The staff report states that these changes were not presented to the CIOC as they are an advisory committee to the city treasurer and advise on investment strategies. And it goes on. These two words, operations and strategies, mean totally different things to me. And so I believe, and when I was in the CIOC with Dr. Trickey, we did annual reviews of the investment policies, and we made changes to the policies, and I never knew that any accounting person got involved in that. We did it all. I also have a job description of the city treasurer that I understand is still good and was revised in March 2015. And it is wide-ranging, making no mention of investments. And the definition states that the city treasurer plans, directs, and supervises all financial transactions of the city and performs other related work as assigned. Examples included all of the accounting functions, preparing reports. It had minimum qualifications, which was in the accounting and public finance area. I feel we need to revise that job description to bring it up to what it needs to be. In going through the revised investment policy, all the changes that were being proposed, except for one, virtually eliminates the job of the city treasurer. So why should we have a city treasurer? The treasury manager and the financial services director can run the investments, but we better be careful of who is in those positions and make sure they are deeply vetted. At least with the CIOC, you have an oversight on the investments and maybe some of the policies. I've always believed that when someone isn't doing their job, that you change the person, not the job. As someone else may come along and you'll have to change the job duties again. In closing, we would like to have the opportunity to go through these changes and present our comments before you vote on any resolutions.
Thank you. Mr. Knott?
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Cherry Lane. In the past, as you know, I've ran for city treasurer, and I brought up some radical ideas. They can open the office of the city treasurer so the public could understand what the treasurer's office did, and also allow the public to give ideas on investments and how to take and invest our city treasury and the reserves that we have. One thing that is missing from a lot of this is local. And I think this is missing from the policy as has been written and proposed today. If we take and look at the local finances, if we keep it locally and invest it locally as much as possible, we can create local wealth and local and investments and enterprise that could take and make Oceanside shine. The problem with the current investments is that most of our investments are handled out of our city, out of our state, and other areas of our nation. They get our wealth, they use it, we get a small residual. If you really look at where the money goes and who takes and handles it and who gets the biggest bang for the buck, someone else does. We get small little amounts from it. We need to stop and start questioning, does it take an effect and benefit the city of Oceanside? I don't see where a majority of our investments are benefiting the city of Oceanside. If we did, we would see this city shine better than it does. It may be a little bit more radical to look at it that way than conventional investments, but it's something we need to start looking at instead of being the same old shoe that we always wear. We need to take and put on something that we can run into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linda Slater?
Hi, my name is Linda Slater, and I'm a 17-year resident of Oceanside. And I'm here as a concerned citizen. I want to make sure my money is invested properly, legally, that there's maximum benefit to the city in terms of return, and also that the elected city treasurer is allowed to do oversight. And I have concerns about the process in which this was developed, this new policy. First of all, last meeting of this council, there was a lengthy disparagement of personal attacks against our elected city treasurer that were just awful, and they were very difficult to sit through. And I'm concerned that this is just an extension of some vendetta against a particular person, and I hope that's not it. Secondly, the Citizens Investment Oversight Committee is there for the purpose of advising, and why aren't they given the opportunity to advise on the entire policy? Thirdly, in the policy, it says, in consultation with the city treasurer, and this is the finance director, and I don't understand what consultation means. And I went back through history and I read about Rosemary Jones, and she prevented the city from making an investment that would have resulted in, been a tragedy for the city. So I don't think she was just like saying, I don't think you should do that. I think she was actually had some ability to say, you can't do that, do not do that. Finally, Section 10 is claimed to have redundancy. I don't believe that's true, and I think that needs to be reworked. What I'm asking is that you pull this item and postpone consideration on it and come back with a revised policy after the Citizens Investment Advisory Oversight Committee has a chance to give its input. Thank you.
Thank you. No other requests to speak
speakers.
from the public. So staff, could you respond to those questions? I hope you were taking notes. And in hindsight, perhaps this wasn't a consent item, since we seem to have a lot of questions about it, including from the CIOC. Could you respond to, identify yourself and respond to the
Good evening,
questions?
Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jill Moya, Financial Services Director. I want to point out, first of all, that these proposed changes align with the actual practices that are happening right now within the Treasury Department. We felt that it was important to clarify roles and responsibilities that are actually happening right now within the division. We also felt like it was important to increase oversight and internal controls, which we believe that these proposed changes bring to the investment policy. I do want to point out that our elected treasurer was given the opportunity to review these changes and sign the report, but declined to do so. And all of the changes that we brought forward do have to do with the operations of the division, which is, per our city ordinance, is something that the financial services director defines, and in consultation with our elected city treasurer, who was given the opportunity to discuss.
Why wasn't this presented to the CIOC?
Per consultation with staff and city manager's office, we felt that it was important to clarify all of these changes. Last city council meeting, we did say that we were going to come forward with some additional proposed changes. So because it had to do with operations within the division and not changes to limits of securities or investment strategies, we believe that it was appropriate to bring it forward at this time and then advise the Citizens Oversight Committee at a later date. And this is the Citizens Oversight Committee advises, and we did bring changes to them. We discussed some of these changes with them. They always supported all of the changes that staff brought forward. There were just some additional changes that were in the same spirit of the other changes that were brought forward, the same type of language where it says we added financial services director in consultation with elected city treasurer. So it was the same type of language, just expanded to further clarify the operation.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you for bringing these much-needed changes in policies for the protection of Oceanside taxpayers and the city's assets. We have an elected city treasurer that the people elected, and that individual's responsibility and role is to be a watchdog and to stand before the public and say, this is right, this is wrong, here's my concerns, and publicly be present. So my question is where is this watchdog? If he has a concern with this policy outside of an advisory committee, we're standing before elected city council that 3 votes create the policy, and staff has brought this before us, the public has weighed in, and our watchdog is missing. That concerns me, and that should concern everyone that spoke on this item. Because if he had a concern with this item, he would be here today to speak to the public and bring forth those concerns. But he is absent. Therefore, your voices are not being heard. And I encourage you to take that up with the gentleman that was elected. At this juncture, I'm fully satisfied with this policy. I appreciate staff bringing this forward, and I'd like to make a motion to approve it.
There's a motion and a second. Any other requests to speak? Councilmember Weiss.
Yes, just a couple comments. I honestly would be okay with this going back to the Oversight Committee. Call a special meeting if you have to, because I don't see that the changes in here are that dramatic that's going to cause them any heartburn, but I do think they should have at least an opportunity to weigh in before we actually vote on it. But I just want to make a couple comments. So in the introduction page, on the introduction page, the investment policies, the purpose, the primary goal is to protect and manage the principal monies under the control of the city treasurer. That's number one. The monies investment pool entrusted to the city treasurer and I know there are roles defined later on, but the reality is the city treasurer does play an important part in this. And it's not unlike what Councilmember Rodriguez said. It'd be nice to have the city treasurer at least address these issues. So I'm comfortable with moving forward, but I'd be more comfortable with it going back to the Citizens Oversight Committee before we vote on it. But if there's a motion in a second, I will support it. But I would like to say that if you're going to present it to the Oversight Committee and they have any issues or changes or concerns, that I'd like to see that come back to us if they raise any of those issues.
Councilmember Weiss, I actually agree. I don't see why we should have some things that have gone to the CIOC and some things not. And I don't see that this is a time is of the essence. Deputy Mayor Keim?
I'm ready to move on this tonight, but given that, I would, if we can make it possible to have it go to the CIOC, whether it's a special meeting, and then also request again for the third time that the city treasurer be present at a city council meeting so that he can answer these questions. So if we bring it to the CIOC, then he can come back and he can give us his opinion as the elected watchdog of these changes.
Councilmember Jensen?
I agree. I think it should go back to the CIOC. I think that the treasurer should be present when it's brought back to us. And I think that that's the course of action that's appropriate right now.
Okay. We have been advised that our city treasurer will not be present during the pendency of an investigation that is being held. When is that investigation going to be finished?
He hasn't advised me that. The interviews are completed. The report is being prepared. My expectation is that it is going to be available by the end of next week.
I would urge us to send this back to the CIOC. It sounds like the treasurer will then be able to be present because the findings of the investigation will be hopefully made, and he can be present. I have some concerns on 104. I got an email, I believe all of us got an email from Nadine Scott that on portfolio adjustments on item number 104, which is on page 10, it states, when no loss is indicated, the treasury manager shall consider restructuring the portfolio. And it should have been consistent with everything else, the treasury manager under the supervision of the financial service director and in consultation with the city treasurer. That should have been inserted in there, especially to be consistent. What I was expecting was checks and balances in light of what has happened, especially we've relied on having a really good treasury manager for many years in this position, never really having any problems. Come to light that there are no checks and balances, and that position is the only one that has access to the investment information, the portfolio, and I am very, very uncomfortable with that. So I do appreciate staff going in and through and making changes that basically reflect what is happening. So I'm really glad that we do have some level of supervision, but it still is not enough for me. And I don't understand why 10 was completely taken out, entirely eliminated. And again, I don't understand why the COC was able to review 2 items. What I heard from the city treasurer was, well, that's not anything that was before the CIOC. He assumed that the changes would be there before they came to the city council. So, I do not feel comfortable going forward on this today. Certainly not as a consent item. There have been enough questions raised. It feels like we're not being transparent. Deputy Mayor Keim?
I think, we've been very clear, if we're going to separate the investigation and then the city treasury's roles as a watchdog, and it's been, he needs to be here to answer these questions. This is the third consequential meeting he's missed. I don't think that's a valid excuse. I don't want to go here while there's an investigation going on and not inform all of us, just inform one person. So it would be helpful if he could actually attend the next meeting. It's not to discuss the investigation, it's discuss policies within the treasurer office and the
So you're
finance
still, I'm talking about the CIOC not having the ability to have reviewed this and hopefully clean up some of the, we do need to change 104.
And I'm talking about the absence of the treasurer.
We do need to change 104. It says the the treasury manager shall consider restructuring the portfolio. That
Mayor,
gives it all to
may
one
I finish,
person.
May I finish speaking, or would you like to continue?
I thought you were completed with your comments.
Again,
Do you have
I'd be
more?
fine having it go back to the CIOC. However, it's my hope that next time the city treasurer can be here when those adopted changes come back to
I'm
us.
sure he will be once investigation is completed. Councilmember Rodriguez.
So I think we all can agree these policies are necessary for the safeguarding of our portfolio, right? You just admitted, Mayor, that there's vulnerabilities, and these policy changes are absolutely necessary. They may not be perfect in your eyes based on the bureaucratic process, but it's appropriate to get it approved and implemented immediately. And if there's changes, like any commission, they can bring those recommendations through the appropriate channel and come before us for future approval. But I think when you get this approved as is, any changes can come back later.
I am not comfortable with one employee for the city having so much power over our $500 million portfolio. The city treasury should not have that power, and I am really concerned that having someone as we have could have resulted in a huge loss to our city. And this is an employee of the city. So there is a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Motion approved, 3-2, Sanchez, Weiss, Snow.
Thank you. It is past the 6 o'clock hour, so we're going to take up our public hearing items, of which we have one, and that is item number 28. Adoption of a resolution certifying an environmental impact report, adoption of resolutions approving general plan amendments to change the land use designation from light industrial to medium density C, residential MDC-R, introductions of ordinances approving zone amendments to change the zoning designation from limited industrial to medium-density residential, and adoption of resolutions approving development plans for a planned block development overlay for a 25.6-acre site located at 4665 and 4617 North River Road. I'm going to go ahead and open up this public hearing and ask disclosures from council members regarding constituent contacts and correspondence.
Staff, applicant, and public.
Staff, applicant, and public.
Staff, public.
Staff and public.
Thank you, Mr. Navarro. Do we have any correspondence and/or petitions?
All correspondence was forwarded to council. I believe we had one from Preserve Calavera and Everett Delano.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and begin presentations with Mr. Sergio Madera, City Planner.
Good evening, Mayor Sanchez and members of the City Council. I'm Sergio Madera, the City Planner for Oceanside and the Project Manager for the Tierra Norte project. Tonight, the City Council is being asked to consider certification of an environmental impact report, general plan amendments to change the zoning on 2 parcels from light industrial to medium density C residential, zone amendments that would change the site's zoning from limited industrial to residential medium density C, and finally 2 development plan applications to adopt the plan block development overlay in text. By way of background, staff, skip the page. The 25.6 acre site is highlighted in red here. and it's located on the south side of apologies, we have the appropriate presentation here. The project site's highlighted in green here. It's 25.6 acres in area, and it's located on the south side of North River Road, just east of Douglas Drive. Surrounding land uses include residential uses to the north, varied densities. To the south, there's an intervening parcel and the San Luis Rey River and the auto auction. To the east, there's the auto auction, a self-storage facility, and an RV storage facility. And to the west is an existing single-family residential neighborhood. The applicant's proposing to modify the site's land use from light industrial to a residential medium-density C designation. Development under the industrial designation would likely result in incompatibilities with existing adjacent residential land uses. Land use conflicts that could arise are excessive noise, vibration, dust, and odors. The proposed change to the medium-density C residential designation would serve as a transition between the existing single-family development to the west and the more intense auto auction and storage facilities to the east. Staff wanted to better understand surrounding residential development patterns and densities. What we found was that there's a wide range of densities in the immediate surrounding area, which we defined as the 1,500-foot notification radius, and it's identified on the graphic on the screen by that red line. Existing density patterns range from as low as 3.19 dwelling units per acre for the single-family development immediately west of the site, up to a maximum of 19.3 units per acre for an existing multifamily residential development at the northeast corner of the notification radius that's highlighted in orange on the screen. There's an existing, the RMC designated properties most adjacent to the project site, which is highlighted in the lime green just north of North River Road, has a density of about 16.98 units per acre. The project is proposing a density of 16.8 units per acre. This graphic depicts the zone amendment from a change from the limited industrial to the medium density C with the planned block development overlay. With respect to the planned block development overlay, there's two functions of this particular item. One will be it's a designated overlay on the official zoning map of the city. In addition, there's a planned block development text that will serve as the regulatory document that will guide future residential development at the project site. The document includes a land use summary, which contains a density cap of 400 units. Comparatively, under the proposed land use designation, the site could develop at a maximum potential of 497 units. It also includes potential residential building types, site development standards, and parking regulations, and community design guidelines. This PB text depicts the potential density ranges that the two parcels could accommodate. As you'll note that on the bottom line under totals, the density could range between 359 units at the low end up to 497. And again, the PBD text will cap potential future development at 400 units. As we mentioned, the PBD text also includes site development standards. The highlighted standards are actually standards which are in excess of what the underlying zoning would require. As an example, there would be increased setbacks for an increase in building height. So as a rear yard or side yard setback would be 10 feet. If it was a one-story type building, it could go up to a maximum of 20 feet if 3 stories were proposed. One other provision of the PBD text with respect to setbacks are that if it's adjacent to the existing single-family residential to the west, there would a 5-foot increase in that setback would be required. Other provisions that are in excess of what the code requires are a modestly lower building height of 35 feet as opposed to 36 feet under the proposed zoning, and an increase in usable open space from 350 square feet per unit, from 300 square feet per unit to 350 square feet per unit. Finally, any proposed development in the future would require to provide 25% of the unit count as guest parking, where the underlying, where the base zoning standards would require 20% for guest parking. As part of the application and development review process, the city required a fiscal impact analysis be prepared. A summary of the findings are that the property valuation under proposed residential designation would be approximately $83 million more than under industrial development. One-time fees to be collected by the city would be $10 million, approximately $10.7 million more than under industrial development. There'd be approximately 143 extra jobs created during the build-out period, and future residents would pay approximately $8.3 million in sales tax. It is important to note that it's difficult, if not impossible, to determine what percentage of that sales tax would stay in the city. But as compared to development under an industrial proposal, those which has no residents, that would be excess revenue to the city. So with that, staff is recommending that the City Council adopt the resolution certifying the EIR prepared for the project, that you adopt resolutions approving the general plan amendments from light industrial to medium density C residential, and introduce ordinances approving the zone amendments, and adopt resolutions approving the block development plans. That concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions that council may have. It's important to note that the applicant is present and has a presentation for council. We also have members of the city staff to answer technical questions related to specific topical areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any requests to speak in writing? Oh, the applicant. Sorry. What was that? Right. Applicant. Applicant has 20 minutes. Do we have any requests to speak, by the way, by the public? 5, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Dan Niebaum with the Lightfoot Planning Group with offices in Carlsbad here for the applicants this evening. We also have members of our project team here, and pleasure to be here with you tonight. We've been working with staff for quite a while on this project, and we're very happy to have it in front of you this evening. Again, Sergio went through a lot of the land use and development elements of this, so I'll try to keep my presentation short to the point, but some of the things I wanted to point out were the feasibility of this site for industrial, and this graphic helps show this from the beginning, that location of this site, we're showing a 1 mile radius around the site right here. And it is, nowhere near, it's over a mile from the Mission Corridor, further from the 78 Corridor and Oceanside Boulevard Corridor, which are your main industrial corridors in Oceanside. I think that's, very evident when you look at this. As Sergio went through the entitlements we're asking for, the important one to talk about is the development plan, where the residential development is capped at 400 units on this site, which is a 16.8 dwelling unit per acre density. If we went to the max of the RMC, it would go up to about 497 units. But we wanted to lower that development when we looked at other impacts related to the project or potential impacts in the future. And that's a cap. That doesn't mean that that's going to be right at 400, because future development plans will have to come in and be reviewed for actual specific development on the site. So this site really is an infill residential development. It's going to repurpose an underutilized site to provide needed housing options. And we believe that medium density residential to be workforce housing will be the focus of any project. This really aligns with long-term city planning projections for the area. And finally, this location just is simply not feasible for successful light industrial development. I want to move that on. Sergio showed you the land use and general plan designations. He also showed you a graphic of the area with the surrounding densities. And this graphic might be a little hard if you look at your screen. This highlights some of the RMC and RMB and RMA areas. Here's the project site, but in the area off the North River Road corridor, there's several RMB, RMC, and RH areas with the densities ranging from 15 up to 20 units per acre. Our density, again, is about 16 units per acre. I wanted to give some background on this. This is part of the general plan update supporting documents, and this information comes from a background report, which was a market analysis done in June of 2021, looking at future development, land use in Oceanside. They had divided the city up basically into 4 districts, which are the council districts, when they looked at different areas for development. And the consultant that did the analysis looked at near, mid, and long-term land use projections for the area. And they divided the site, again, the city into the 4 different districts. And they evaluated market conditions related to employment and residential and retail uses and so forth, and they projected market demand in those timelines. And Tierra Norte is located in Area 2, which is highlighted in red. Area 2 is shown as strong for residential development, but Area 2 is not listed for industrial development in this report, and this is helping to inform the general plan update that's going forward. Again, this is a simple graphic just outlining, it comes from the economic development information of the city, but this is the Oceanside Boulevard corridor, clearly where most of the industrial is centered in Oceanside, near the airport. This is a simple graphic to reiterate that. This is our site here. The Oceanside Boulevard or the Mission corridor has the industrial near the airport. The remaining industrial is really centered along Oceanside Boulevard corridor. Next, El Corazon, Ocean Ranch, Pacific Coast Business Park, and further east on Oceanside Boulevard. So Sergio had gone through some of the financial information for the project, and we believe that really supports the residential development of the project. And again, the PBD overlay district is a development plan we'd be approving tonight, but it will provide further standards and design guidelines that do not exist in the zoning code right now to guide future development on the site and help serve as a resource for staff and future developers to ensure a higher quality design of any project that comes through on there. Sergio had shown you the land use categories and the different development standards. We tried to increase the development standards and the setbacks, being mindful of the neighboring uses, and any setback, go back one, any development near the single-family residential, actually the setbacks are increased by 5 feet, but they're also increased for upper stories. So the setback would be increased for a second-story structure or a third-story structure, further than it would be under existing zoning today. We are increasing the open space requirements and increasing the guest parking requirements. And there's a number of different product types that would be envisioned under the residential mixed medium density category. We have some of these criteria and vignettes in the PBD plan, give some background on what is typical of these different kinds of developments. But in addition, as I mentioned, we have community design guidelines that are in the plan that'll need to be followed and be implemented by staff and applied to any project that would come forward on here. And these kind of guidelines don't exist in the city zoning code right now. And they involve site planning, massing and scale of the structures, roof form of the structures, which is important when you get to second and third story buildings, and additional guidelines that speak to material finishes, garages, accessory buildings, and so forth. So ultimately, I believe this is an opportunity to repurpose an underutilized infill site to provide realistic future housing options for the community. Due to its location, protracted access routes, and surrounding development pattern, it's highly unlikely that successful contemporary light industrial development would be realized now or in the future on the property. our market assessments and fiscal impact assessments, support residential development of the property. And finally, medium-density residential development of this property would complement, we believe, the existing uses, residential uses to the north and west, and provide that transition from the existing industrial to the south and east. And we would ask you to concur with the Planning Commission recommendation made last month, the unanimous recommendation of 5-0 to approve this project. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Members of our team are here, as I've mentioned. I'm happy to come up later and answer questions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, this is a public hearing. This is a time when the public has a chance to address this specific issue. You did not have to actually have submitted a slip to speak. We do have 5. We're going to take up those 5 first, and then I will ask if there is anyone else who would like to speak on this item. You have up to 3 minutes to speak. Please identify yourself when you come up to the podium, and then go ahead and you have up to 3 minutes.
Our first speaker is Michael White, to be followed by Denny Cooper, to be followed by Amanda Solis. And as I call your name, please make your way down to either podium.
Good evening, Mayor Sanchez, members of the council. My name is Michael White, and I've been a resident of Oceanside now for 4 years. I've learned a lot of things since I got involved in efforts to minimize the impact of new development in my neighborhood. But by far the most disturbing things have come from conversations with neighbors who had great difficulty evacuating the area when advised to do so, as they were threatened by the lilac fire a few years ago. Some described it as the most frightening event of their lives, recounting hours spent in their cars attempting to get on North River Road, Douglas Drive, or College Boulevard to make their way to the 76. This, frankly, has brought me to the conclusion that there should be no increase in population density in the area until infrastructure improvements are put in place. And we don't need to look far to find examples of this. For example, the Encinitas Planning Commission recently denied permits for a proposed development, the Clark Avenue Apartments, due to, quote, the anticipated negative traffic impacts on neighborhood roads. Commission Chairman Kevin Doyle said, and I'm quoting, to be done correctly, it's going to have the proper mitigation measures in place, end quote. So even if we are successful in reducing the number of families moving into Tierra Norte, we must find a way to support that increase as well as that which will come from the 600 new families potentially arriving by way of the North River Farms development. The question then becomes what form those infrastructure improvements should take. As luck would have it, Tierra Norte itself could be pivotal in creating an additional evacuation route. And I have a map here that I'd like to display on the screen if possible. I have a paper copy and I have a digital copy on my phone if that's possible.
Mr. Knott is standing up to help with you, with that.
Thank you.
Could you hold?
Mm-hmm. I do have a digital copy on my phone if necessary.
Camera's not working?
I don't think the camera is working.
The green light's on.
Yeah. We will have our IT specialist.
I hear this, I hear, it's magic. You say something and it happens, right?
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
look, so go to logo to the document camera. So if you want to hold it up, we could have KOCT zoom in on it. Yeah, if you want to hold it up, we could have KOCT zoom in on it for the viewers at home at least. But, and we could definitely make a copy and distribute it to the council if need be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go on. Okay.
No. Continue holding it, KOCT.
Yeah, I did see it.
And the council will see it on their monitors in front of them.
It's not appearing on the screen.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I have a dark screen. Oh, there it is. Oh, cable, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
It's, can you do it a little clearer? No?
Yeah, I'm afraid the print is rather small, but,
Right, no,
And
okay,
we
there.
will
It's a
definitely
little-
make
it's a little
copies
clearer.
available for council as well.
okay.
Okay, we see it. So
Okay, thank you. All right, as I said, Tierra Norte itself could be pivotal in creating an additional evacuation route. The project will undoubtedly include improvements to the intersection of North River Road and Calais Jovan. That's the access road into the property. For example, a left turn signal from North River Road would probably be one of those improvements. Then, if Calais Jovan were to be extended south and a new bridge be constructed across the San Luis Rey River, Calais Jovan could intersect with Old Grove Road to the south, and that would provide an additional access route to the 76.
Could you conclude your comments?
Just shortly, I have one more paragraph.
No, one sentence. One more sentence. Your time is actually up.
Tierra Norte's owners have already shown a willingness to work with the community by reducing the number of homes to be built on the property. I'm sure they will be willing to make a cooperative effort and work with the city of Oceanside as well in order to make this happen.
Thank you.
With that in mind, I also strongly support adopting reduced intensity alternative development plan number 2.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're recommending alternative number 2.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've just been informed that the document camera is not going to be working tonight, so if anybody has any documentation you would like the council to see on their screens, just hold it up and we'll direct KOCT to zoom directly on whatever you're holding up. Unfortunately, we apologize for that. Mr. Cooper.
Hi, my name's Denny Cooper, and thanks for allowing me to speak. I live at 51 Trinity Street, which backs up to that said property that we're looking at. I don't think most of us here that live in that area are against having some kind of building going on there, but I believe that we're asking for low density and to more be in line with what's to the west of that property. And the big part of that is the safety issue. Dan and Sergio, you guys have done a great job of looking at all this, but we don't hear a lot on the safety. And I've been the chaplain for the Carlsbad Fire Department for the past 20 years. So I have been part of Poinsettia Fire, Lilac Fire, everything from 2002 on, I've been part of those disasters. And one thing that when I had written a letter and I talked to Sergio, he said, well, sometimes things don't go as planned. And so that was the problem with the Lilac Fire, people trying to get out. It just wasn't, it just didn't work exactly like we expected it to. Well, if you've ever been part of those disasters, that's 100% of the time. When disasters happen, they're disasters for a reason. It's because they never, not that you don't have a great plan, but that plan doesn't always pan out. Whether it's communication, whether it's the people that are having to evacuate, not everything is perfect. And so we know that north of the riverbed, anything north of the riverbed is difficult to get people out of there. Fortunately, during the Lilac Fire, that was a fire that just moved itself up and was not really a firestorm like we've seen Napa Valley a few years ago, that kind of storm. If that were to happen here in Oceanside, where that came up the riverbed like that, and it was an actual storm where we get 50, 60 mile an hour Santa Ana winds, people aren't getting out. And most people die in their cars in these disasters. They don't die in their homes. And if you're trying to evacuate people on the north side of that riverbed, there is no way people are getting out by cars. And if they are, a lot of them may die. And so to Mike's point, we need another outlet. We need another outlet for that north of the riverbed. And before we go on and do any more building, that outlet needs to be taken care of. And if that's part of the project that the builders have to do, then that's, I believe, what needs to happen. But we need to make sure, for the safety of our community, the safety of our people in Oceanside that live north of the riverbed, that we have another way out for the safety of our people. So I would ask council as well to either come back, table this, and have them come up with a plan to be able to do this, or we table it forever. So
thank you very much.
You asked that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amanda Solis, to be followed by Ellen Bartlett, to be followed by Diane Nygaard.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Amanda Solis. I live in the Rancho Pacifica neighborhood, and I'm asking that you not approve this project. My neighbors and I are not against converting the farms to housing, but we are opposed to the medium density C zoning that the project is proposing. 400 units on this 25.6 acres of land is extremely high density and is incompatible with this area, as you guys have seen in the various presentations. The surrounding area is mostly lower density residential housing. There are a lot of negative impacts that come with such high density apartments that aren't mentioned in the project documents. Increased home, car, mail break-ins and theft. Lack of parking overflow into surrounding neighborhoods, not enough security. And this isn't just complaints from those surrounding neighborhoods. This is complaints from people that live in the existing RM medium density C apartments along North River Road and Douglas. Those that they showed on the presentation up there, go look at the Google reviews and you'll see past and current residents complaining about the same things. While those are all negative impacts for people in the immediate area, there are also negative impacts that affect all residents in Oceanside. For our own economic development element, apartments are the only land use that have a net negative fiscal impact. The project density is not sustainable given our current transportation infrastructure. The local transportation study shows that the project adds a lot of strain to major roadways, even with our city's Horizon 2035 infrastructure improvements. This isn't just about being stuck in traffic. This is about safety and evacuations. These traffic congestions and evacuation impacts are further compounded by the other major developments that flank this property, such as the 585 units that are going up on North River Farms and the 700 units that may be built around the corner for Ocean Camp. The area along North River Road is especially concerning for evacuations because of the bottlenecks that are caused by the bridges on College Boulevard and Douglas Drive. The applicants have agreed to their fair share contributions for roadway improvements, but when will these be realized? There are no concrete plans or deadlines for these roadway improvements, and I don't have confidence in these contributions doing anything to alleviate traffic or to reduce those evacuation bottlenecks. There are also major issues with the vehicle miles traveled analysis, which leads to extreme underestimation of the amount of pollution that this many units would cause, rendering this project not CEQA compliant. Finally, the FEIR for this project shows several project alternatives. The reduced intensity alternative is shown to meet the project objectives while simultaneously mitigating many of the significant impacts that the original design, high-density design introduces. The reduced intensity alternative is much more compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods and would have a net positive fiscal impact on the city. You have the power and responsibility to make the best decisions for current and future residents. Please do not approve this project in its current form. Instead, insist on the reduced intensity alternative, which have a lasting positive legacy on this community and all of Oceanside. Thank you.
Thank you. So you were supporting alternative 2? Is that what you were saying, alternative 2? Okay.
Ellen Bartlett, to be followed by Diane Nygaard.
Sorry. There we go. Got it. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Ellen Bartlett. I'm a longtime Oceanside resident.
And I'd like to say that this project, as it's written, does not meet the needs of our community, and it's going to cause irreparable harm to our local habitats and as well as the global climate crisis. I continue to be saddened and frustrated by the implications of adding higher density in this area. This impacts our community's future and the welfare of our planet. Here are just a few of the problems. I know I don't have time to list them all, so here's a few of the problems regarding the Tierra Norte project as it's presently written. The zoning change will exacerbate our already very lopsided jobs to housing ratio, which is one of the lowest in North County, if not the lowest. There appears to be a total failure to address transportation impacts. Although these impacts are acknowledged in the final EIR, there is no mention of mitigating these impacts. The city seems comfortable to continue using faulty calculations and the outdated CAPCOA handbook to calculate vehicle miles traveled impact. There are numerous problems with meeting greenhouse gas emissions, such as underreporting of emissions and faulty calculation. There has not been adequate pesticide analysis and mitigation on the site, and we are ignoring the general plan's smart growth corridors. It does not align with the city plans, and I don't know how we can continue to not go by our own guidelines and to just ignore our plans. Ignoring the climate crisis does not make it disappear. It's only going to make it worse. And I recommend alternative 2 for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Diane Nygaard representing Preserve Calavera. This is not a by right or a density bonus project. It's a completely discretionary action. You're asked to use your judgment to whether this major change in land use and intensity is a good fit with our community. The applicant wants to go from what's almost half agricultural land and light industrial to 400 multifamily units. That's a huge ask and not one you should take lightly. The design standards and like setbacks and open space, they do nothing to address the impacts of this project on things like air quality, traffic, greenhouse gases, and health. Call attention to the letter that we and our attorneys submitted that details those concerns and other concerns about how this project will impact our community. We know we're short industrial land, not here where. We need more job-producing land. We need more housing, and we need to grow in a sustainable way, both to protect our economy and our environment. This project makes job housing imbalance worse. It will damage our environment, and it's not a good fit with the neighborhood. It doesn't comply with our general plan and climate action plan. They both say growth should be concentrated along our major transportation corridors, not adjacent to our ag land and areas where we have very limited infrastructure. Of course, 400 more units will cause major traffic impacts. The traffic study identified 4 intersections and 7 road segments that will not meet our traffic standards and will require mitigation. But they're asking you to ignore those traffic impacts tonight and to defer addressing them until later. Later is too late. And much of the proposed mitigation is to just pay a fair share towards roads that might never get built. Future roads will not help the person who's trying to evacuate when a wildfire is coming their way. They've also failed to address the greenhouse gas impacts. Tonight, millions of people are experiencing excessive heat and flooding from climate change. We can't keep ignoring these issues. But there's an action tonight you can take that strikes a reasonable balance between all these competing concerns. We urge you to select alternative 2, 76 residential units, not 400. It's the environmentally preferred alternative. It's the one that provides a good amount of additional housing, but not an excessive amount. It's more compliant with our general plan, and it avoids the disastrous impacts of putting 400 units at this location. Please select alternative 2 as a compromise that could work for our community. Thank you.
And that's all for the registered speakers.
Okay, thank you. So for those of you who wish to speak, please approach the podium. You have up to 3 minutes to speak. You do not have to have submitted a slip. And please identify yourself and then go ahead and start speaking. Again, if you wish to speak, you can start approaching the podiums. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. I have no real issue with any new development as long as it's a responsible development. And one thing that's being basically ignored with this and a lot of other developments, it's not providing new sources of water. And that is a definite problem for all new developments, because you're not having any type of new water retention that is being developed, nor any new desal or any water reclamation. It's not mentioned in the studies. It's just relying on what the city has currently in plan. Well, we all know now we're into a 1,200-year drought. 1,200 year, and it's getting worse. It's not sufficient. We're teetering on an edge. We have a lack of carrying capacity in our watershed. And our watershed isn't just local anymore. It's from the state of Colorado to the Pacific Ocean. We need to start looking and developing retention or some form of study that would take and go through and see what we can do if we are to develop. Any developer needs to start looking from the state of Colorado to the Pacific Ocean. And they need to start working with other developers to take and set up those retention areas so that they can responsibly develop. If they aren't, there's one word that's in our future: rationing. Get used to it, because that will be the consequence if we do not take and look at it. In this project, did you see community gardens? Did you see xeriscaping? The answer is no. You saw conventional landscape. In our area, xeriscaping is a necessity, but yet you saw trees, you saw grass, you saw plants that are high water use. This is not responsible development. We need to start thinking responsibly. Otherwise, every one of us here will be rationed.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, Council, Joe Hill, 22-year resident. I actually have been up to that property twice. I drove up again today and looked at it. I don't know if any of you have actually been by there and seen it. It's surrounded by houses. The Nagata and Kawano have an opportunity. It's like a canvas, and they're painters. They have the opportunity to put something there that ties into the neighborhoods, that keeps the character the way it is without having a monstrosity like the builder did over in Mission Lane on Academy Road. What a terrible place that is. But when it gets built, it has to comply with all of the rules and regulations, of course, that we talk about all of the time. But there's no reason that it shouldn't go. 400 is probably too many. In Mission Lane, they had 389 houses on 35 acres, and it's a mess. I mean, I just hate to go by there. If we don't do 400, maybe that allows the character of the neighborhood to be kept and, settles down some of the issues that everyone's complaining about. There's a little development right across the street from that property called Riverview, and it's really a nice little community. And if they use that as a model, or kind of tried to stay within those parameters and made it look like that, why, I think everyone would be happy. This is just my opinion. I'm sure that it's not a popular one, but it's going to be housing up there. It is all housing, and the property that's there now, it's empty. It's just dirt. It's something needs to be put there, and if it's done right, and it's done with a passion to make sure that everyone is as happy as possible, and can still make the neighborhood look like it's supposed to look, then it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, my name is Richard Newton, and I'm speaking off the cuff here on this item. I don't have anything prepared. I just want to say that I find it ironic that item 25 on tonight's agenda deals with expanding drought restrictions, more severe drought restrictions than we currently have. And I think I don't know what the answer is, because development is good for the economy, but I think it's a bad move to add more housing and more demand for water when we don't have enough water to go around the way it is and we're implementing restrictions. I also agree with what the gentleman said over here about infrastructure, generally water in particular, and then also with the roads. We need some other means of ingress and egress to those areas, and also down to the 78 freeway to ease some of the congestion in the area. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Before I close this part of the public hearing?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I was at an earlier meeting on this topic.
Please identify yourself.
Maria Coffey.
Thank you.
And my backyard will be adjacent to the new place that they're building. And one of the topics that was brought up was that the people that own the property have a right to make money. They do. But I think it should be a good compromise for all of us. Whatever the proposal was for low-density housing, I think that's a better fit. But before we start that, we really do need to look at the infrastructure. As they said, the traffic, the safety issues, the water. There's a number of things that need to be looked at so it doesn't make it hard for us, the members that already live there. Please don't make our living environment uncomfortable because somebody needs to make money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other requests to speak? Okay, I see no one else rising. I'm going to go ahead and, oh, okay.
Honorable Mayor, council members, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Daniel Dominguez. I'm a candidate for City Council District 2, and I was listening to all the comments. I live on the north side of North River Road, and I think the gentleman that mentioned the concern about evacuation routes, I had to deal with the Lilac Fire, and I also, back in the early 90s, I had to deal where there was flooding along the riverbed. There's really only 3 access points to move out of the north side of the river. Well, actually, there's a 4th. There's Pendleton, if you want to go that way, but it's Douglas Bridge, the College Bridge, or North River Road through Morrow Hill. And with more and more development on the north side, it's going to be, if there is a need to evacuate, those are going to be the choke points to keep people from evacuating all the area north of the river. I agree with the position that alternative 2, the lower density position, is the best. I spent the last week talking to people on the north end, or on the north side of the development, Libby Lake, the Riverview area, and I talked to people, and their main concern was the traffic and the evacuation. And I must have talked to at least 500 people in those neighborhoods in the course of about a week or 2 weeks canvassing that area. Anyway, thank you very much. And again, I support alternative 2.
Thank you. Did you state your name? I'm sorry, I was talking with the city attorney.
Oh,
Did you say your name?
Daniel Dominguez.
Okay, thank you. Any other requests to speak on this item? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this part of the public hearing, and the applicant has 12 minutes?
12:56.
12:56. Did you want to do any rebuttal?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Dan Niebaum again for the applicant. Yeah, again, I think we heard a number of comments related to traffic, and we have done a full traffic analysis on this, but traffic has changed under what's analyzed under CEQA. I mean, Sergio and planning can speak to that. We've done a VMT analysis that was done and reviewed and accepted, and it's been done correctly. Our traffic looks at traffic effects, and they've been called impacts, but they're not really impacts under the sense that they used to be since the VMT law has changed. And I would just remind this, as we look at what's appropriate on these properties, light industrial, certainly not. I think we've agreed to that. And the city needs housing. We looked at a reasonable medium density housing roadmap for this project, for this site. And any project that comes forward has to go through a full development plan process and be reviewed by the city and the planning commission, and if it's appealed, by this council. The alternative 2 item is really what would be zoned REB. It's required to be looked at in the EIR. It's 76 units. That simply doesn't meet the goals of the project. I've heard that comment a number of times tonight, but the medium density residential is what the proposal is for, and we would ask you to consider and approve that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, to the council. Councilmember Rodriguez.
I want to thank the public for coming out and weighing your concerns about development, evacuation. These are legitimate concerns for our district. I travel these roads every single day and just as frustrated during rush hour times where we're stuck trying to cross over the College Bridge there by Starbucks, and then we get stuck on College near Oceanside Boulevard. And where is the infrastructure? Where is the infrastructure? And since being elected, I work closely with staff on prioritizing capital improvement projects in District 2, which include widening of College Bridge. We're going to add a lane on each side in a cantilever fashion. It is on the list, and funding sources are being identified. Once that bridge is widened, it will allow for safe passage for pedestrians and a substantial amount of additional trips per day. That is in the planning works. And I'm excited that we're able to move on major infrastructure improvements like that will help relieve traffic in our district. Tonight before us, we have a property that's sitting vacant and it's not being used correctly. But that's because our general plan is outdated. It's over 38 years old. We're updating our general plan. We're updating our circulation element, which assesses the circulation of our city to ensure that we have adequate infrastructure for issues like fire evacuation. That was a scary time. My property was the closest within Oceanside to that fire. I remember turning my well on and sprinklers on and saying a prayer before I evacuated my entire house, including 2 pigs, off the property, and we had to stay closer to the ocean, and that was a scary time. And I investigated that evacuation, and we worked closely with fire on looking at ways of improving that process. But it was disclosed that the reason for the backup was human error and not infrastructure. Individuals were called to evacuate all at once and all around the same time, and that was incorrect. That should not have happened. If the correct sequence and plan was in effect, individuals would be evacuated in a series, in a staged fashion, and that didn't happen correctly. And certain protocols and planning have changed to ensure that that doesn't, happen again. And my hope and prayer is that we never have to deal with that as a city. But what's before us tonight is a change of land usage to accommodate desperately needed workforce housing. Desperately needed workforce housing. A part of the reason costs are so high is because we lack inventory. And so we're needing to redesignate this land residential, and I think the argument in question today is, okay, how much residential? Some of you want 50. There'll probably be 50 opinions in this room, including none to 300, 400, and those are all varying opinions. All we're doing tonight is we're reviewing this and saying that housing is more appropriate on this land. Now, the number of housing units will have to go through the development entitlement pathway, public process, public notification process, on-site public meetings, and it will have to go before the Planning Commission and whoever sits on this dais in the future, and you'll have an opportunity to weigh in on what that project looks like. But the monetary benefits of real estate development to enhance infrastructure is important, because the city in and of itself cannot accommodate the infrastructure improvements that we need for our city. We have to partner with the development community to get much needed infrastructure improvements. Your tax dollars, our tax revenue doesn't cover it. We need to have those partnerships so that we could advance our infrastructure. And so it's important, and I want to hear what my colleagues have to say, that we realize that this project will come back in the future with a developer that has an idea, with public input on what that looks like, and looking to mitigate those impacts that they will create. Whether it's 20 houses or 400 houses, they have to mitigate those impacts or it shouldn't get approved. And they're going to show the public and this body how they can mitigate those issues. And so we're not approving 400 houses that's going to be breaking ground tomorrow. We are approving a change, and then some future developer is going to have to come back and apply and go through that public process. And so I want to make that clear, that we're not approving 400 houses today. We're not approving 79 houses today. We're approving a plan that says this land is better used for housing, desperately needed housing, and we look forward to seeing that plan come forth in the future that adequately mitigates for any and all impacts it creates, because that's what I would expect, and I won't support it unless it does. Thank you.
No other lights? And I do believe that before us is also the density, is that right? So it's not just the change in land use from light industrial to residential. We're also approving the density, is that correct?
Mayor Sanchez, as part of changing the site's land use, you assign a density range. With the plan block development plan, there will be a cap on that density range of 400 units.
Right, so we are tonight talking about 400 units. All right, just I wanted that clarification. Councilmember Weiss.
I have a couple questions for staff. As part of the presentation with the PBD plan, there were comments made that it would cap the total residential units at 400, and it also had very specific setbacks, parking, height restrictions. Is that a fast, hardline cap at 400 units and those development requirements?
Councilmember Weiss, if it was just a straightforward non-density bonus project, that would be the cap. The density bonus issue is a whole nother realm. Anyone who wanted to exceed the 400 units that are being capped tonight would have to re-engage an environmental review process to see what those incremental differences, what impacts they could have.
So if someone came in with a density bonus project, that 400 cap is likely to be as much as 500 to 600?
Councilmember Rice, potentially, the site would have to be able to handle that land.
So the 400 is not necessarily a hard and fast cap?
It is not.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jensen?
I had a question for staff as well. We've heard about water a couple times and concerns about enough water for this project. And I'm just wondering if water is an issue or a concern for this project or not.
Councilmember Jensen, so the Water Utilities Department, as part of the development review process, reviewed the proposal change in land use. There are a host of conditions of approval that the future applicant for future residential development would have to comply with. None of the conditions speak to the inability of the utility to provide water to the site at 400 units.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, Lindsay Leahy, Water Utilities Director. All projects within the city and all properties within the city are part of the utilities urban water management plan, which looks at the future development of any undeveloped sites and the future use of water within the city from now into 20, 30 years, 40, 50 years in the future. These sites are part of that project, even though they have not yet been developed, and we do look at what the use of their current zoning are, as well as if they're in a planned process. We do evaluate those as well. In addition to that, this project is along the corridor that does have recycled water pipelines, and there would be a mandatory use for all landscaping to be connected to that recycled water pipeline as well. So as far as what we've seen to date, there's no concerns with adding that project as far as water supplies within the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's all. I think.
Okay, thank you. Question, if we were to pick alternative 2, for example, that would be the 76 homes. It could come back to us for a higher number rather than picking what is before us and then, which is 400, then looking at 500, possibly 600 ADUs and all kinds of other things, correct?
Mayor Sanchez, that's not a very simple question to answer. Tonight, what's before you is a proposal to, most importantly, change the land use.
Yeah, change the land use,
C.
but also setting the density. So if we were to go with alternative 2, that would set the density at lower, which would be the 76 homes, correct?
Mayor Sanchez, that's a different change of land use to a different category. That's not being requested tonight. And so the alternative 2 was just an alternative analyzed as part of the environmental impact report process.
Right.
It's not what's being proposed.
It's not being asked, but it is something that we could consider at this time. Alternative 2, which was studied by the EIR and which had a superior, the results were superior in that they did not result in so many impacts environmentally and also in terms of traffic and all that. Is that correct?
Mayor Sanchez, that was analyzed as part of the EIR.
Yes, thank you.
Mayor, can I just
Time.
note the draft EIR, the final EIR that's in front of you, does include findings that rejects alternative 2, though. So if there was somehow a consensus for alternative 2, we would have to revisit that question. So
Right.
you couldn't approve it as it's obviously set up in front of you.
We'd have to come back, right?
Yes.
But in terms of all the folks who are here, who are mostly from District 2, that are being impacted by this project, which is, by the way, this project is completely discretionary, we can consider that, come back with a different alternative, which is alternative 2, correct?
You could deny the application, I presume, without prejudice and
Right.
give direction.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Keim?
Just want to follow up on Councilmember Weiss's comment. As we've had a challenge with density bonus where the state takes over local control, and I want to express very strongly that this 400 cap is important. I might like to see it not go up to 400. I don't want to see density bonus get abused again and take control away from the city and planning. I want to have our development standards met, and I expect when a project comes through, it follows those, and it doesn't force us into a position where we're doubling density. I just don't think our citizens don't deserve that. But
So are you recommending that we decide on less than the 400 that's being asked for right now?
no, I'm saying I don't want to
Not?
see a density bonus used and be able to avoid development standards and have excessive numbers of homes.
Well, Deputy Mayor Keim, right now, we have the ability to avoid that entire situation via this decision before us. Later on, if we choose the 400, that as Councilmember Weiss has indicated, 400 is not a cap. It can go up to
400 is a cap, but the density
No.
bonus overrides our cap. So it is a cap.
Councilmember Weiss indicated, is this a real cap? And the response from staff was no.
It's a city-imposed cap, but the state takes local control away. So it is a cap. It's a 400
But we don't
cap.
have to let the state take it over 400, because today we can actually reduce the amount. Today.
If with version 2 for staff, could a density bonus project be applied to that?
Deputy Mayor Keim, it could.
Okay, so a density bonus project can be applied no matter what we do.
Yes,
The state,
but if you start off,
Mayor, may I please finish talking?
Well, if it's 76, then we get to maybe 250 rather than 500, double. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Let me just tell you, put it this way. 76 units, it won't even be, it's not gonna be a built project. The whole move on stating, oh, let's go with option 2, 76 units, there's not a developer out there that will touch this with a 10-foot pole. What'll end up happening is nothing, and that's the plan with saying 76. There's no, the feasibility of building 76 homes and the infrastructure that have to be brought in, it doesn't make sense from a business perspective to ever be built. It'll just sit. And that's why it doesn't make sense. And that's why what we're approving today is consistent with different areas of the community. I personally don't want to see high density with density bonuses. I wouldn't approve that. And hopefully whoever replaces me when I step down and hand the baton won't either. That's just going to create more havoc and craziness in our community. But there's an opportunity here to designate land appropriately with what it should be designated and allow the public process to take place and negotiate between our staff and a private developer to build a community there that we want and the infrastructure that we need. Now, what number of houses that looks like is a negotiation in the future. You know, I don't foresee ever supporting 400 houses on this. I just think that's too many. That's my personal opinion. But we're not approving that today. We're approving the opportunity and land change. We're not voting on a development to break ground. And this whole 76 dynamic is dead. It's not going to go anywhere. It won't even be touched. It'll just collect dust. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, maybe I'm not being clear. All of your constituents that are here are asking us to vote against this request because it's too damn hot. All of your constituents. We have been told, and in history here, anytime a piece of property is either residential or commercial, it will be built as residential. Maybe some mixed use, but there is nothing that's going to stop this project from being residential and a project built, whether we put 76, definitely not 400, because we've already heard that is not the cap. Right now, we have discretion. That means right now, we have the opportunity to make sure that doesn't go to 400 and up. Right now, we have that because right now you can't build housing. We can pick alternative 2. We can send this back to staff and say 400 is not acceptable. Not acceptable. And we already know where the state is heading, even though this is not on a major transportation corridor, right? They can say, oh, well, let's just extend the radius to include places like this. We don't want that to happen. We want to set it low enough so that we have discretion again when this project comes back, that it will be at a lower density. And also we can right now say, and it must address the mitigation issues for traffic and transportation. The 11 segments and or intersections, that should be addressed ahead. The infrastructure need to be addressed ahead of time, not later on with paying just in lieu fees, which is really what everyone is doing here. They're not building anything. So there is not a motion right now. I would really move. I would prefer that we send this back to staff and come up with if we don't like alternative 2, come up with something where there's no way in heck this could be 400 or above. I'm hearing on the dais that we don't want 400. That's what I'm hearing. We should direct staff to bring this back, make sure it's not 400, not even 300, so that we have as much leverage, we have as much say, we have as much power to be able to provide a nice project. We're losing 25 acres of very, very critical industrial. Right now, we're behind 75 acres industrial. We now, after this, if this gets zoned rezoned residential, we'll be behind 100 acres. All right, I'm hearing, well, we understand that. We are extremely low. It's problematic that we have a low jobs to residents ratio. Okay, understanding all that, I hear that there's at least a consensus that let's go ahead and do this, but please address the density, please address the mitigation. We can do that. We can do that tonight, by sending it back to staff. So I move that we send this back to staff with direction to come back with a lot less density to ensure that if this ever gets to be a project, that there's no way in heck we're going to be seeing 400, 500, 600 plus. Is there a second? Councilmember Weiss.
I have a question for staff. So in your slide for your PBD text, the land use density, you have a range of 15.1 to 20.9. Can we cap that at 15.1 and not go to the 20.9? That the maximum density is 15.1?
That,
since it's a PBD text.
Councilmember Weiss, I believe that would be in the purview of this council to further limit the potential density at this site.
Well, then I'll make a motion that we approve staff recommendation with the PBD text at 15.1 as the maximum density.
I'll second that.
Have the applicant come speak to that.
Just put your light on. And what would be the maximum at 15? 375?
Mayor Sanchez would be just under 387 units.
That's not much of a difference, and I got 375. That's only 25. So with a density bonus, we'd still go over 100. We could still go another 100 or so. We could still be at 400, 500. No, not every project, not if we pick a low enough density. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Looks like we have a motion and a second. I just would like to understand the feasibility and perspective of the applicant. I would just like to, if they have some more time, if they want to weigh in on that reduced density.
very much.
Excuse me, thank you. I was talking with my clients on that. I might need another minute to confer with them, if that's okay. Okay. So can I understand the motion is to cap the land use category at 15 units per acre? We're at 16.8 right now at 400. So that achieves about 360 units.
Yeah, could we take a 5-minute break, potentially?
Yeah, we can take a 5-minute break right now.
Thank you.
It is 7:20, so 7:25. All right, we have staff getting to their seats now. All right, I'm going to go ahead and resume this public hearing. And again, this is item number 28. There was a pending question made by Councilmember Rodriguez to the representative of the applicant.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if staff, is there any comment to make or I continue or?
I believe it's down to 2 or 1.
Mayor Sanchez, members of the City Council, just one clarification. If the motion made by Councilmember Weiss were to be approved tonight, that would provide a cap of 359 units at the project site compared to the 400 that was being proposed as part of the planned block development text.
Okay, and I think you have how much time left?
We had about 11:36 on rebuttal time.
No, that's not the rebuttal. This is on his question.
Oh, about 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay. I thought it was less than 1.
About like minute 59, but I can't punch in seconds on this clock here.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Hey, thank you, Dan Ebom again. We spoke about this. So one reminder why we went to RMC and did a PBD plan at 400 units, because the max RMC is 497. We tried to reduce it down to be good neighbors. That was a question early on in the project process. So the 400 cap was done for that reason. Also looked at traffic issues, because we've been dealing with this project for a while, and traffic has evolved quite a bit since we started this project. So that was the reasoning behind that. We felt that was a fair number. At RMC, it's 16.8 DUs per acre. The motion's at 15.9. We would really prefer the 16.8, but 15.1, it could be accepted.
All right.
What's this?
I don't know if you're gonna have the votes tonight to get the full amount. So it's like we're at kind of all or nothing, and that's why I wanted you guys to have that 5 minutes. So I think we have a motion and a second on the reduced density, which is attempting in a very minuscule way to balance the density concerns of the public. And so, that's where we're at. So I guess what I need from you is, so just deny the project without prejudice and come back with something different, or agree to the reduced density?
We would agree to the 15.1.
Okay, very good.
There's a motion and a second, and there are no other lights. All right?
I'll need to, we have 2 ordinances, so if you bear with me, I'll title them both. We'll do it as one vote. So obviously, as I understand it, the motion in front of you is to adopt the staff recommendation, but to cap the density at 15.1 dwelling units to the acre. And if it passes, we'll amend the PBD text accordingly and then bring that back as part of the second read of the ordinance. You also have the resolution certifying the EIR and adopting the appropriate findings. So what I'm going to do now is just title the ordinances. So we have the introduction of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending the zoning designation for certain real property located at 4665 North River Road from limited industrial IL to medium density residential C with a plan block development overlay. Tierra Norte Zone Amendment, ZA 13-0001. And we also have the introduction of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside amending the zoning designation for certain real property located at 4617 North River Road from limited industrial IL to medium density residential C with a plan block development overlay. Tierra Norte Zone Amendment, ZA 13-0008, obviously with the density reductions referenced by the council.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 4-1. Sanchez, no.
All right, thank you very much. We're now on general items. My apologies that it didn't turn out as you'd like. We have to move on our agenda. Thank you very much for your comments on this item. Number 25 under general items is introduction of an ordinance amending Chapter 37, Article 5, to authorize the Water Utilities Director to declare drought levels 2 through 4 changes and authorize the City Council to determine whether new potable water services, temporary meters, and permanent meters are issued at drought response level 5 and 6. So bottom line, this is a request to delegate to our water utilities director the declarations for droughts levels 2, 3, and 4. And we have Jordan Alejo, Environmental Specialist 1. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm Jordan Alejo, Environmental Specialist in the Water Utilities Department. Today, I will be presenting an ordinance amending Chapter 37, Article 5 of the Oceanside City Code of Ordinances. Staff is recommending that the City Council introduce an ordinance that will amend Chapter 37, Article 5 of the City Code to allow the Water Utilities Director to declare drought levels 2 to level 4 changes and give the authority to the City Council to determine whether new potable water services, temporary meters, and permanent meters are issued at drought response levels 5 and 6. In June of 2021, Oceanside City Council adopted a drought ordinance that established drought response and conservation measures in line with state guidance and the model drought ordinance adopted by the San Diego County Water Authority. The ordinance established 6 drought response and conservation levels to be implemented in the event of a mandatory water reduction. The goal of this multi-level approach is to ensure that all customers throughout San Diego County and the state have consistent messaging in order to have greater understanding of the drought response requirements. The regional ordinance also allows agencies to work together during drought to develop messaging, outreach, and education. Additionally, at drought response level 5 and level 6, the Oceanside City Code of Ordinances states that no new potable water service shall be provided and no new temporary or permanent meters shall be provided. In March of 2022, Governor Newsom signed an executive order asking that State Water Board and Department of Water Resources enact additional water restrictions in the face of the 3-year drought. This past winter season was one of the driest on record, with record low precipitation. In response, the State Water Board adopted emergency regulations in May and went into effect this June. This emergency regulation put into effect level 2 drought actions for all municipalities and banned irrigation for non-functional turf for all CII customers. With the current status of the drought, San Diego County Water Authority and other agencies are predicting the state will be moving into level 2 drought declaration for all water suppliers. To respond to ongoing drought conditions, providing the Water Utilities Director the ability to declare appropriate drought levels provides the city the flexibility to comply with quickly changing state regulations. The changes being requested to Chapter 37, Article 5 will enable the city to meet the mandates as set by the 2020 Urban Water Management Planning Act, as well as delegate the authority to move to level 2 through level 4 of drought response levels to the Water Utilities Director. This will ensure the city will comply with future emergency drought declarations by the state and San Diego County Water Authority. Following the declaration of the new drought response levels by Water Utilities Director, the city manager shall place an informational item on the next available city council agenda to explain to the public the new restrictions. This update is highlighted on your amendment handout. Currently, at drought response level 5 and level 6, the Oceanside City Code of Ordinances states that no new potable water service shall be provided and no new temporary or permanent meters shall be provided. An additional change requested to Chapter 37, Article 5 will give the authority to the City Council to determine whether new potable water services, temporary meters, and permanent meters are issued at drought response level 5 and 6. Staff recommends that City Council introduce an ordinance amending Chapter 37, Article 5 to allow the Water Utilities Director to declare drought levels 2 to level 4 changes and give the authority to the City Council to determine whether new potable water services, temporary meters, and permanent meters are issued at drought response level 5 and 6. Thank you for your time, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, we do. We have 3 speakers on this item. Our first speaker is Jimmy Knott, to be followed by Richard Newton, to be followed by Sandra.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. Why are we here tonight? We had a previous staff member tell us very simply, there is no drought. We can build until tomorrow, until there's no problem at all. We have no problem at all for building in the future. That's what we were told. I laid out what basically our federal government said, our state government said, our county government said, but our city said, build to your heart's desire. Go ahead. We have water until it runs out of our ears. That's essentially what was said. I basically gave facts. The facts that you were given today was basically pro-development. And pro-development alone is not taking any facts into consideration for any of the climate change that's going on. It's slapping every citizen in the face, because if we do not take action, there will be rationing. Mark my words, there will be. What's coming before you is preparation for that. It's coming from the same department that the staff member has said to you, you don't need to consider it. It's making me livid, because they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. I cannot stand this. When staff comes forward and says one thing and says another, that's not right. I sat on the Utility Commission for over 15 years. I know the facts. I've seen the facts. What's happening in our state, in our western region of this country, is very, very serious. If we have another 5 years of this drought, you mark my words, rationing will take place. And what is being said and what was said will come home to roost. I am just so irritated at what was said and what was given to you. We should be taking and looking at our developments very seriously, because every one of those houses that come along will be a death nail to someone.
Thank you, Mr. Knott.
Richard
Mr. Newton,
to be followed by Sandra.
to be followed by,
Just to Sandra, but I'm assuming it's Sandra Martinez, I believe? Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, the document camera doesn't work, but if you have something to show the council, you could just hold it up and we'll have KOCT zoom in on it. Hold it up in front of you if you have.
I got the right time.
Okay.
So I hope I'm not too far off base here. I don't understand all the intricacies necessarily of these article sections, but I do have, in general, a problem with giving power to bureaucrats who are sometimes less than responsive to the public need. With that in mind, I'm going to continue with my prepared speech. Honorable Mayor Sanchez, members of the City Council, and the public, please reject this proposal to give the Water Utilities Director the power to declare drought emergencies, restrict water use, and issue fines. No offense intended. Across the nation, there's a long list of bureaucrats abusing authority while hiding behind Byzantine rules, government inefficiency, and countless loopholes. Let me give an example from within Oceanside itself, the WaterSmart AMI meter opt-out plan. I first expressed concerns to the Water Department in or about 2019. My sense was they were adamantly opposed to providing an opt-out choice for residents. After bringing my concerns to the council, opt-outs were approved in April of this year, and I again thank the mayor and the council for recognizing the need for an opt-out. This is a material change to the AMI program, yet the Water Department has failed to inform the public. There has been no mention of an opt-out choice in the important messages section of the water bills, on the department's webpage, or in its 20-minute videos describing the AMI program. When people call to opt out, water department representatives dissuade them from doing so, as indicated by Lindsay Leahy in her April 20th comments to the council. City literature and dialogue on this matter is almost propagandistic, 100% in favor of AMI with no valid presentation of legitimate concerns. Informed consent should be the standard. In June, when I asked about public notification, Ms. Leahy replied that the department was still working on a plan. This is not a reason to delay the public because notifying the public, because there is a method currently in use to accept the opt-outs. It is the phone number you see before you, which is the water department number, 435-4570, and a notepad and a pen. The current method is to people can call the water department to be put on the opt-out list. Most people are not aware of this, however, because there has been no public announcement. Further ignoring the will of the council, the water department has continued with smart meter installations while failing to notify those residents of the choice to opt out from AMI. I've heard from several people who've been given AMI meters. Keep in mind that servicing an opt-out is not difficult. It is simply the status quo. Employ the meter reader and continue entering data in the same manner that has been done for decades. Problem solved. All of this means that the department will now need to notify everyone retroactively to offer an opt-out and free removal of the transmitter from their installed meter, as well as an impartial presentation of the pros and cons of participation in the AMI program. From public records, I have learned that the water department is planning to take 6 months to develop a form to process opt-outs. Government efficiency or intentional foot dragging, I leave it for you to decide. Though through ineptness, indifference, or intent, the water department is thwarting the will of the people and the orders of the city council, such as the nature of unchecked bureaucrats safely ensconced in job security.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please.
Do you have?
Sandra Martinez?
Right. And this, what is before us is a request to delegate certain declarations to the water utilities manager with respect to state requirements, state orders requiring immediate action. And that is what's before us. It's not the water meters, it's basically that. So.
Hi, Mayor, Council Members, Sandra Martinez. Over the last 2.5 years, we've seen unprecedented increase in government growth, regulation, control, and power through the declaration of emergencies and other actions. This has removed the decision-making process from people and elected officials to non-elected government employees, bypassing the principles of both a democracy and a republic. Our voices are not being heard, and the normal checks and balances have been sidestepped. This entire amendment is poised to turn decisions of our public water usage to the Water Utilities Director. The reason behind this move cited in the amendment is to move quickly and efficiently. This statement is inauthentic, as it is neither reason nor justification to transfer such power to non-elected individual. The current ordinance allows the City Council to declare drought levels. In Section 37.108, Part D of the proposed amendment, it states that City Council may declare an end to the drought response level by holding a regular or special meeting. So it makes sense that an emergency meeting can be called by the Council to vote on a drought response levels as well. There's no reason to rush into a decision with such an impact on the community. I have faith in our City Council. With the City Council continuing to vote on the drought response levels, it maintains the integrity of democracy and prevents loss of control of our most important life-supporting resource, water, to an unaccountable, non-elected, appointed official. We need thoughtful actions, not just following orders. Thoughtfulness comes from discussion and multiple viewpoints, not from one person following a computer model or orders from the state of California, which is ignorant of our unique circumstances, which has been demonstrated in past drought conditions. Remember, years ago during the drought, San Diego was one of the few counties to implement innovative measures to address water challenges, from low-flow toilets and replacing lawns to a complete infrastructure overhaul to obtain water from the Imperial Valley. We exceeded state water use restriction requirements, yet we were punished for performing so well and ordered by the state to further restrict usage despite our water-saving measures that surpassed state requirements. The City Council needs to be the decision maker in this very important issue. We need multiple viewpoints, discussions, and public representation to make wise decisions. We voted for you, our City Council members, not the Water Utilities Director. Please vote no on number 25.
Thank you.
And there are no more public speakers on this item.
Okay, back to the council. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, public staff. So could you explain in layman terms what, I understand the Water Control Authority and Governor Newsom signing ordinances, and a lot of that trickles down, and as a city, we kind of act like a catcher's glove to modify our local ordinances to comply with these regional boards, the Water Authority or the state. Are we prematurely moving forward from the city attorney's opinion, are we prematurely moving forward on this, or are we just complying with requirements that have been handed down to us?
I don't think there's a specific requirement that you have to adopt this. I think the intent behind it is to allow the city to move expeditiously as drought conditions change. But I don't know if you've seen, but the department did add and the city manager's office added a new paragraph to the draft ordinance that would require an immediate calendaring of a public meeting with the city council to go over the new restrictions that would apply should the water utilities director move us from a level 2 to a level 3. So there would be some public transparency with respect to that action.
Okay. In just reading this ordinance change on page 3, it says existence of drought response level 2, 3, or 4 conditions shall be declared by the Water Utilities Director in accordance with the Water Authority Board of Directors declaration. The mandatory conservation measures applicable to drought response level 2, 3, or 4 conditions shall take effect on the 10th day after Water Utilities Director declares the response level, or on such later date as may be set forth in declaration. Here's the part that concerns me. Within 5 days following the declaration of the response level, the City of Oceanside shall publish a copy of the declaration in a newspaper used for publication. If the City of Oceanside establishes a water allocation, it shall provide notice of the allocation by including it in the regular billing statement for the fee or charge, or by any other mailing to the address to which the City of Oceanside customarily mails the billing statement for the fees or charges for ongoing water service. Water allocation shall be effective on the 5th day following the date of the mailing. So can you clarify, we just hit level 4 conditions. What are we doing here? What authority are we giving here? And what does that translate into in a 30-day window on Oceanside ratepayers?
Thank you, Councilmember Rodriguez, Honorable Mayor, City Council. To clarify, the department and the city would not be moving into a drought level unless directed by the state and by the Water Authority. Only after the state declares a new drought level and then the Water Authority declares a new drought level would the city then be required to go into those levels. And typically the state requires that movement to be pretty quick, within, I believe, 10 days or 2 weeks. As far as drought levels 4, the restrictions and requirements are listed in the ordinance and I believe in our urban water management plan, which essentially further restricts water consumption or water use within the city. I believe drought level 4 requires a 40% reduction for the city, as well as lowered ornamental lawn watering that's not using things like recycled water.
What if somebody doesn't want to follow the rules and washes their car 3 times a day and waters their lawn? What consequences do you have the authority of implementing on that ratepayer?
So at this time, there's no intention of doing any like enforcement or monitoring ourselves or by staff. I think in past years, it's been based on complaints by neighbors and residents. And at that time, usually we take the route of education rather than any fines. But we do work with the residents and try to educate as to why the drought levels are important and are being implemented by the state.
Okay. I think before I can get on board with this, and I think my colleague has some comments, I want to see what that looks like tangibly if we were to move into those drought levels, what those action steps and or consequences would look like or protocols would look like before I give that authority through this ordinance to your office. You know, as we move in this, you know, drought is serious. We need to do what we can to educate the community, equip the community. But I think the city council needs to be heavily involved in that process to get that word out to our districts. And I don't want to see ratepayers being, you know, punished because, you know, local Karen, what have you, no pun intended, wants to call and complain, you know, like the mask police back in the day. So I would feel more comfortable in seeing what that would look like if we were put in that position before giving that authority to your office.
Ms. Lindsay, if the city of Oceanside decided not to be in compliance with the water authority in the state of California, could we be denied water?
Honorable Mayor, City Council, I believe that there would be either denied, not necessarily denied water, but there would be issues with our water wholesaler and from the state. I'm not clear on exactly what those either reprimands or restrictions could be.
Could we also be fined, and that would go to the ratepayers?
There are those potentials that the state and the water authority could hold us accountable. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Jensen.
Yes, I agree. Water is a huge concern. We live in a desert. California is a desert. But I would like to say we spent a lot of money on Pure Water Oceanside. We've done an incredible job of being able to put water back into the aquifer. And I believe that we are forced by the state of California to purchase water that we don't even need. So that being said, it goes to local control. The state mandates the drought level. It doesn't, if it doesn't even apply to us, if we have plenty of water and the rest of the state doesn't, we are still going to be held accountable. We're going to be against those fines, those restrictions, all of it, even though Oceanside itself has plenty of water. So that's very concerning to me. And I'd hate to see people being fined and these kind of restrictions being in place when Oceanside has plenty of water. That's my concern.
What do you have? We have 25% right now. We're shooting for 30%. We don't supply our own 100% of our own water.
That's correct. Not at this time. With Pure Water Oceanside becoming operational, we will be at about 30% local supply. And once all of the active projects that are under construction at this time are completed, we should be at a 44% local supply.
Okay, Councilmember Weiss?
I have a question for the city manager. Does all of this conversation regarding drought levels and everything else change our state mandated regional housing numbers?
No, it doesn't, and it does not. It does not. So there are competing interests out there, certainly at the state level.
Anyway, I would move approval of staff recommendation. However, the only thing I would like to see different is that following the declaration, that rather than it being an informational item coming to the council, that it comes to the council to confirm the decision.
All right.
So I understand the need for expediency, but I'm okay with the utilities director making the decision, but then you bring it to us to confirm it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Did you want to say something else? Councilmember Jensen.
I have one more concern about the meters. When we go into the drought levels, are the meters going to be acting as the police when the water use is restricted?
Thank you, Honorable Councilmember Jensen and Mayor. So the water meters are never intended to be used as a policing method by staff. We do not have the intention or the resources to be monitoring water consumption based on the meters. The meters are used to inform and educate the residents on their water use habits so that they can self-correct if they're seeing overuse and or be notified early and frequently if they are seeing a leak within their property.
Right. Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Mayor, I need to title
sorry.
this, and we have some
Introduce the ordinance.
edits. We have some edits, too, I need to read into the record. So this is the introduction of an ordinance of the City of Oceanside, amending Oceanside City Code, Chapter 37, by authorizing the Water Utility Director to declare drought levels. With the draft that's in front of you, however, paragraph D on Section 4 should read, following the declaration of a new drought response level by the Water Utilities Director, the city manager shall place an item on the next available city council agenda to ratify the Water Utility Director's decision.
Okay. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 26 is adoption of the resolution approving an employment agreement between the City of Oceanside and Jonathan Borrego to serve as city manager. And we have a presentation by Mr. O'Brien, our interim deputy city manager.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council. Robert O'Brien, interim deputy city manager. As directed, following the closed session meeting on August 10th, 2022, staff is bringing forward for your approval the employment agreement for Jonathan Borrego to serve as the city's next city manager. The terms and conditions of the proposed agreement are consistent with those the City Council has previously approved for the position of city manager. The proposed agreement has been reviewed and executed by Mr. Borrego and is compliant with the provisions of Government Code Section 36506, which requires that the city manager's employment is at the pleasure of the City Council and that the compensation of the city manager shall be established by resolution and adopted at a public meeting. So at this juncture, staff is recommending that the City Council adopt the resolution approving an employment agreement between the City of Oceanside and Jonathan Borrego to serve as city manager.
Thank you. Any requests to speak?
There are no requests to speak on this item.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Second. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Congratulations, Mr. Borrego. It's now official. Item number 27 is acceptance and approval of the Oceanside Police Department Needs Assessment Study Phase 1, approval of Amendment 2 to the Professional Services Agreement with LPA, Inc. in the amount of $149,750 for a revised contract amount of $171,325 to change the scope of services for the Phase 2 portion of the study, and authorization for a sole source agreement with LPA Design Studios for the completion of construction documents. And we have, our presentation is by Mr. Brian Thomas, our city engineer.
Thank you.
Thomas?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. Brian Thomas, city engineer. With us tonight, we have Mr. Jeremy Hart from LPA and Mr. Jim McLaren from MWL Architects, who prepared the study for us. So staff is asking that City Council accept and approve the Needs Assessment Study Phase 1 as complete. Staff is also requesting the City Council approve Amendment Number 2 to the Professional Services Agreement with LPA, Inc. in the amount of $149,750 for a total revised contract price of $171,325. In addition, staff is also asking City Council to authorize a change to the scope of services for Phase 2 to allow for the preparation of 30% conceptual design documents for further discussion. We are also asking City Council to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement upon receipt of all supporting documents. And lastly, staff is requesting City Council to authorize a sole source agreement with LPA for the completion of construction documents based on the recommendations of the conceptual plans. A little bit of background. Since 1999, OPD has called 3855 Mission Avenue its home. The site comprises 2 buildings totaling 49,108 square feet and includes a secure parking area. This was considered an interim facility in 1999 with a life expectancy of 10 years. In 2009, Griffith Structures Incorporated conducted an assessment study which included 4 sections. 1, identify facility needs for future headquarters and for future operations. 2, describe approaches to meet these needs. 3, provide a probable cost opinion for the identified alternatives and approaches. And 4, examine interim approaches for using or expanding the existing facilities. While the purchase of the land for the new headquarters was not part of the 2009 agreement, the assessment, it was estimated that 8 to 10 acres would be needed for a single-story facility with accompanying parking. Due to funding restrictions in place at the time, the project was not implemented. In 2019, as a result of community needs, it was decided to revisit the 2009 needs assessment to review and verify the data, and recommendations were still needed, or if the data needed to be updated to include changes to policy, climate, or other criteria. First call for proposals exceeded the budgeted amount of $100,000. Cost proposals at that time ranged from $197,000 to $307,000. As a result, staff modified the proposal request to focus more on assessing the existing site and current future OPD needs, as well as the proposed site work. The revised proposal request split the work into 2 phases. Based on the second round of responses, costs range from $149,825 to $273,110, with the phase 1 costs accounting for $21,575 proposed amounts. On September 15th, 2020, a professional service agreement was entered into with LPA for phase 1 work to review and update the 2009 needs assessment. Amendment number 1 to the professional service agreement was authorized on March 10th, 2021 to revise the budget to cover the costs associated with phase 2. Items associated with phase 2 included analysis of the continued operation of the existing police facilities, relocation to another site to cover current and future needs, construction of a new facility as replacement to the existing facilities, and lastly, construction of a new facility while maintaining the existing one. Phase 1 study has been provided as an attachment for review and approval along with tonight's requested action. Under the analysis, as noticed on the previous slide, the original phase 2 scope included evaluation of 4 separate scenarios, but did not cover conceptual designs or preliminary design investigation once a site had been established. Phase 2 was only to make assessments and recommendations. The cost for phase 2 services under Amendment 1 was $128,250 for a total contract amount of $149,825. As the project moved up the priority list, staff researched possible locations and identified a potentially viable site for the new facility, which is located at 1280 Rancho del Oro Road across the street from El Corazon Park and is currently owned by the city. While the 2009 study indicated that 8 to 10 acres would be needed to construct the necessary facility, staff believes that the 5.81 acre site can accommodate a multi-story building and parking structure that provides staff security as well as necessary facilities identified in the phase 1 assessment. Currently, the California Career Trucking School currently leases this property from the city. The lease may be terminated after 30 days notice to the trucking school. The property currently lies within the Rancho del Oro Plan Development Area and is zoned commercial with a property designation of PD-1 commercial. The area is located immediately north of the property. The area located to the immediate north of the property is part of the Rancho del Oro Village Number 8 development. This portion of the project is also part of Planning Development -1 and has an open space designation. The steep terrain indicates there is very low possibility of additional development in this area. The area located to the immediate northeast of the property is part of the Ocean Ranch Phase 2C development and also has open space designation. Due to environmental constraints, including coastal sage and steep terrain, there's a very low possibility of additional development in this area. The area immediately to the east of the proposed site is part of Ocean Ranch Industrial Area and is currently zoned industrial. The site soil profile is bedrock based on initial analysis conducted by the city's geotechnical consultant, and there does not appear to be any geologic issues that would affect the design or construction. Should this site be later determined to not be as suitable as anticipated, the footprint of the facilities can be transferred to another similarly shaped property. Staff is requesting a second amendment to the professional services agreement to change the scope of services from analyzing the 4 separate scenarios, as previously noted, to engage the community through free public outreach meetings, provide conceptual plans, assist the city with the deposition of existing facilities, and to attend council briefings and to make a final presentation to council of the selected concept, along with a rough order of magnitude of costs. During the conceptual process, staff will be mindful of the associated costs and will bring forth the best possible design for the most appropriate cost estimate. This process will be followed throughout the construction document process. Now, staff is also requesting a sole source authorization for the construction documents with LPA in order to maintain project continuity from the preliminary or conceptual design through final construction documents. This avenue will allow the project to move forward at a more rapid pace. Based on staff experience, doing so will reduce the amount of time required by 5 or more months due to the time needed to prepare a proposal, respond to the proposal, approve the conceptual drawings, work through the interview process, bring it back to council for award, and then bring the newly selected consultant up to speed. LPA is fully qualified and equipped to move forward immediately once the conceptual plans have been approved by City Council. Based on the added costs and time delays for both the consultants and staff time, staff deems it is a reasonable approach to pursue a sole source contract for the completion of construction documents at this time. Under amendment number 1, the cost phase was $21,575 and phase 2 work was $128,250. LPA has revised its phase 2 cost based on the changed scope of services. The revised amount to complete phase 2 is $149,750, which increases the total overall contract by $21,500 for a total amended contract of $171,325. Measure X program currently has $2 million programmed for fiscal year 23-24. For the next stages of this effort, staff will bring in a request for the additional $21,500 to the Measure X Citizen Oversight Committee in September for recommendation to bring that balance back to City Council in October. So staff is asking City Council to accept and approve the needs assessment study phase 1 as complete. Staff is requesting council to approve amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement in the amount of $149,750 for a total revised contract price of $171,325. Staff is asking council to authorize a change in the scope of services for phase 2 to allow for the preparation of 30% conceptual design documents for further discussion. Staff is also asking City Council to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement upon receipt of all documents. And lastly, staff is requesting City Council to authorize a sole source agreement with LPA for the completion of construction documents. I remain available to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, we do. We have one request from Joan Bachman.
Ms. Bachman?
Hello, good evening, council members and mayor. I'm Joan Bachman. As you know, I'm president of Friends of El Corazon, and we are very, very happy to support staff's recommendation because they found a place for the police headquarters that is not inside El Corazon Park, and we were quite worried about that. This is a great site. I have been up there. I have hiked there because the little infinity sign is very useful when you're putting the current Google map on the original designs for El Corazon to figure out which of our roads are working and various things that are being developed. If you've seen some of our maps, we do a lot of that. So great place. Please put it there. And Friends of El Corazon is very supportive of staff's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Back to council. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Very straightforward. Very excited to see this. I unfortunately will not be on council when future major decisions are being said, so I'll attempt to plant some seeds tonight. I am a farmer, and hopefully they grow. Our police officers need a better facility. They need a consolidated facility. Right now, they're kind of spread out. It definitely affects the overall future of public safety in our city if we don't have the adequate facilities for our police department. And so I'm excited to see we have a site. We're moving on this. The goal, just so the public understands, the current site can be used or repurposed or sold to help cover some of the funding potentially for this new site. The comments I want to bring, I want to make a motion to approve it, but the comments I want to bring forward just to put out there are, I think there's some huge opportunities for our city as we approach this to do it right, and applying for grants, especially from the county, and to look at putting jail cells on this site. That'll give our city the flexibility to not have to coordinate with Vista on if somebody needs to be behind bars, put them behind bars. It would give our city that discretion. There's also tons of income opportunities to cover the cost. We are short on jail cells, and yes, they're expensive. Yes, we have to staff them, but I think there's a huge opportunity to at least consider looking into incorporating some jail cells as a part of this project so we do it right and all at the same time, because the longer we delay, the more expensive things become, and that's just the nature of city projects like this. So I would like to see that be considered. I've brought it up to staff a couple times as we've had this conversation, and it's something that I actually originally heard recommended by our former city manager, two city managers ago, Michelle Lawrence. She actually is the one that opened my mind to that. And so definitely something I think we should take a look at. Thank you.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second. Councilmember Weiss, did you want to speak? Okay. The reason why that got taken out, as I recall, is that neither the feds nor the county were interested in funding that part. I did have a question. I actually was looking at staff report, page 3. It talks about adding some additional parts to the phase, the scope, to include an assessment of the existing police facilities and to assist with looking at potential partnerships for reuse of the existing site. I was wondering if perhaps we could cut that out because our needs may change over time, and maybe this isn't the best time to be doing that, which might cut down on the cost as well.
No, thank you, Honorable Mayor, City Council Member. There's actually no cost associated with their assistance at this point.
Okay.
We had that discussion after everything was done and they were providing the cost to me. They're certainly willing to help us move through that, but in further discussions with the city manager's office, we feel it's best if we do most of the work up front ourselves, just because it needs to be in our bailiwick. And they're certainly willing to help us on the back end with a P3 partnership.
All right, I thought maybe that was an added cost, so it's not. Okay, good.
It's not
All right.
cost at this point.
Thank you. Let's, there's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
We are now on item number 30, because we do not have any advanced requests to speak, which was just item number 29. How many, and this is communications for the public regarding items not on this agenda. How many speakers do we have?
We have 12 speakers on this item.
12?
12.
Okay, let's go.
As I call your name, we have 2 available podiums. As I call your name, please come on down and pick the first available podium. We'll start off with Arlene Hammerschmidt, to be followed by Lisa Russell, to be followed by Ken Layton, to be followed by Joe Hill.
Tonight, I have nothing to say on public off-agenda comments. Have a good evening.
Sorry, I was surprised. Thank you, Arlene.
Lisa Russell.
Hi, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I'm Lisa Russell, born and raised in Oceanside, 60-plus years. I currently serve as a member of the Oceanside Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm one of 3 members of a current ad hoc committee. On April 27th, I was a part of a sports forum put on at Melba Bishop Park by our OPRC committee. In that forum, findings were discussed were field usage and joint use agreement. A major issue I feel is Coastal Academy is using the city facilities, Junior Seau Center, Melba Bishop Gym, and our aquatic centers and many parks and fields without authorization of a joint use agreement. And we heard that Coastal Academy was not a part of the Oceanside's joint use agreement from an official representing the Superintendent's Office of Oceanside Unified School District. Chair Sue was in attendance that evening. On May 17th at our Parks and Rec Commission meeting, on behalf of our ad hoc committee, Commissioner Godinez gave a bi-monthly report. After reading his statement, and it was time for open discussion, Chair Sue took it upon herself to play our findings down. She went as far as to say something like she heard from a former ad hoc member that Commissioner Godinez would like to have staff fired. I could feel my heart drop and couldn't believe what I was hearing. Now there was only 2 former ad hoc members, Amanda Nelson, who moved and left a letter of thanks to the ad hoc committee, and Janae Alms, who resigned due to family reasons, and she felt she did her job by getting the much-needed 3 pickleball courts built at Melba Bishop Park. I am confident neither of these ladies said this to Chair Sue. This false accusation needs to be addressed. Despite numerous findings from voices of our community, the overwhelming findings from the sports forum from the 427 meeting, again, was a joint use agreement for Coastal Academy, was approved by Mark Olson, who said, quote, "I made that decision," unquote. On 6/1, the ad hoc committee met with interim city manager Jonathan Borrego. We were concerned about the conduct of Chair Sue and the mishandling of our report findings. We requested Jonathan Borrego review the joint use agreement of Oceanside, California, going back 3 years, and the questionable donations of 5 bleachers totaling $14,000 to the Junior Seau Beach Community Center. 1 week later, on June 8th, at the City Council meeting, I heard a recording of this meeting where Chair Sue's comments regarding appointments to the commission and a letter read by a council member reinforcing the comments by the Parks and Rec Chair Sue seemed to be coordinated and contrived. For me, I feel the environment has made Chair Sue's demeanor at the Parks and Rec meeting 5/17, it seems hostile. We had our next meeting at the Parks and Rec bi-monthly meeting, July 12th, and Chair Sue and Commissioner Godinez were not in attendance. Meeting was run by Vice President Mark Herman. I abstained from approving the minutes on 5/17. I still feel the Parks and Rec Commission has some unresolved issues. Hopefully, we will have some resolution before the next meeting, September 13th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Layton?
Ken Layton speaking only for myself. It is a sign of strength when you admit you made a mistake. Council members Weiss and Keim seemed honorable when they admitted they really stepped in it by appointing Corey Jensen as a fellow council member. But that gentleman was kind of a really big mistake. What I think you need to do now is repeat loud and clear so everyone in District 1 can hear that you regret the Corey Jensen mistake and tell the fellow citizens of Oceanside, don't make the same mistake twice. Ms. Jensen is telling people to re-elect Corey Jensen, which of course is a deceptive lie on its face. It is illegal to claim you were once elected in fake election material. Corey Jensen's full-time aide is a relative named Holly Lady who gets like 70 grand a year, but City Hall staffers tell me she just simply does not show up to work. She's on the payroll, but she's not on the job. In Oceanside, city council aides can come and go as they please if the council member they report to doesn't care. Maybe the city manager could keep track of the work habits of council aides so that their supervising council member could be held accountable at the polls for the deadbeat staffer who is milking the system. And Corey Jensen, maybe you can tell us why, when you have official meetings in your office, you have fellow real estate agent Patty Kirschweim in attendance. This person is not your aide and does not work for the city. Who is Patty Kirschweim, and why does she say she handles your meeting schedule? And why do people think she is representing the city in some capacity? Is Patty Kirschweim connected with your timeshare rentals? We just would like to know. Council members Weiss and Keim, you really plopped a great big you-know-what in the city punch bowl when you made Corey Jensen council member Corey Jensen. You both admitted the error, but I think you owe it to us to do everything you can do to fix your mistake and make it go away. It's the least you can do. Please do not enable your Corey Jensen mistake to be made twice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe Hill, to be followed by Jimmy Knott, to be followed by Dwight H. Benner.
Joe Hill, 22-year resident. I guess it's your night, Ms. Jensen. I want to set the record straight about Corey's delinquent property taxes. When Jensen was appointed, her delinquent property tax debt at that time was $50,000. Since she had stopped paying the taxes in 2017 and 2018 tax year. On June 5th of last year, on the sidewalk outside this building at a recall event, Katie Taylor made the first false statement about the property tax debt. Ms. Taylor stated to a group of us that Jensen had paid and was up to date on her current property 2020-21 taxes, which she was, and was working with a tax assessor on paying the remaining fines for her past debt, which she was not. She even put that info in a recall rebuttal document shown here, but of course that never happened. And what is more amazing is that Jensen didn't pay last year's taxes, any of them, for 2021, 2022. So now the additional debt and all the penalties is almost $75,000. The second false statement was made at a council meeting last month when Ms. Taylor blamed the bank mortgage company for not paying Jensen's back property taxes through the impound accounts, and that the bank should be sued, and call this a political hit job. Of course they can't be sued, because during her 10-year bankruptcy, Wells Fargo Bank allowed a loan modification on the Oceanside house loan at a lower interest rate without impounds. And as you can see on this bankrupt court document, Jensen was, as a debtor, totally responsible for paying all future property taxes and insurance. There was no political hit job here, just the cold, hard facts of a financially irresponsible city council member who doesn't live in Oceanside. Thank you.
Mayor, council members, Jimmy Knott, 127 Sherry Lane. There's a couple ideas which I wanted to share with you and see if you were receptive to them that the public has shared with me. What they're interested in is like having every quarter of the year, having a public workshop that is driven by the public, where they would submit to you or to some account here on the city's website, maybe under Vox Populi or something like that, that they would just submit an idea for a workshop that you would hold and have staff basically provide the background on the issue, and they could take and bring the item up for discussion that would take and be addressed. This way, it would be the public driven. Also, this would open up the doors as well for any issue that would be brought up by council during items that you bring up during your time as well, and that need to be addressed, or any of the guest speakers that come up during items not on the agenda. Just wanted to take and ask on that, and also via Zoom. That might be an open door that the public can participate through Zoom input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Sanchez, council members. My name is Dwight H. Benner. I'm a resident of the city of Oceanside, and I'm a retired public employee with 42 years of service, and also worked as at-will for the county of Riverside, where I answered to the Board of Supervisors. I am part of the disabled, blind, aged population and our veterans in our community. I am appalled at the lack of response from our council members when asked to create a mayor's commission on aging to oversee the current issues in our community. In fact, I am represented by Councilperson Rodriguez and have reached out for months with no response. It shows this council does not make our disabled, blind, aged population a priority in our community. I am asking you tonight to add a mayor's commission on aging to your list of commissions in the city of Oceanside and add the item to vote as a future agenda item. In closing, I listened to item number 22 tonight, and I watched your council faces as Mayor Sanchez was talking. I was appalled. The look on your faces, you're here representing us as a city of Oceanside, as our leaders. It's just disgusting. We need for you to act appropriately. I mean, it's not right. And I want to remind you that senior lives matter in this city, because for the most part, they don't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chad Phillips, to be followed by Sandy Beal, to be followed by Joan Bachman, to be followed by Sandra Martinez.
Good afternoon. I'm Chad Phillips from Fire Mountain. I was here last week, talked about school safety. I don't know if this camera is on now. I just saw something up there. Can put it here? Yeah, just hold it up in case people. Oh, okay. He had it so it was up there. Well, this is a picture of my two kids. This is why I'm here. I'm here for school safety in Palmquist. I want it for all the schools, but I'm focusing on Palmquist. It was kind of funny when I came here tonight, the pastor was here and he said, it's all about the children. It's all about the children. And for me, it is about these two kids. You know, I was here last week and I spoke, and after the meeting, the next day I called our deputy mayor, Ryan. I had an amazing conversation. And he asked me, send me an email of what I can do to help. And I sent him an email, and the next day I got an email from the Oceanside Police Department, Sergeant Greg Stahl. And I had a great conversation with him also. He spoke about everything that they have going on right now, all the items that they, you know, what they have in place. You know, he spoke about their disadvantages, the advantages, everything. I I had a great conversation with him, and I thank you very much for getting me in contact with him. Thanks you to the Oceanside Police Department for everything they do, and for them being at my kid's school this week, drop off and pick up, last week, almost every day, except for maybe one. You should see the kids lined up to see the officers. You get a sticker, you talk to them, just look at them. You should hear the parents talking, wow, it's so nice to see the police officers here. It's so nice. I would like to see them here more. And so I started talking to everybody. I said, yeah, I would like to see them here more. I would like us to have an armed guard. Everybody I've talked to agrees with me. I met at the district office and I spoke with the assistant superintendent. Tracy Schmidt controls the safety, and Dr. Lawrence. And the meeting was great, but I went there to get this on their agenda. They said, well, for it to get on the agenda, it has to come from the school board. So Monday, I wrote them an email. I said, this is what's gone on so far. This is what I'd like to happen. And I requested a response. I haven't had a response yet, but I did have one from the deputy mayor. It's very important to me. I'm not going to stop. I want all of you guys to look at these pictures, man. Look at all these kids, 500 kids at Palmquist. No officers in there in the morning, in the afternoon. Awesome, I love it. We have 2 officers right here, and the chief of police for us right here, right now, you guys. I think we really need to look at this. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Sandy Beal, to be followed by Joan Bachman, to be followed by Sandra Martinez.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sanchez and City Councilmen. I'm Sandy Beal, the park representative from Rancho San Luis Rey Mobile Home Park. You probably remember me from last year. I've been here many times. Last year we didn't pass our health and safety inspection because of our isolation valves. And then finally, we were conditionally passed. We got a notice of compliance last year, and they gave the park 1 year from August 11th, 2021 to August 11th, 2022 to comply with the water isolation valves. So this year, we had our health and safety inspection again, and we passed. Well, we went to the Manufactured Home Fair Practices Commission meeting in April, and we explained to them that actually the water isolation valves had not been fixed yet, and they listened to us. And they had another meeting on May 5th, and there was a resolution, and it was signed by the Manufactured Home Fair Practices Commission Chairman, George McNeil, Secretary Zeb Navarro, and General Counsel Barbara Hamilton. And it was signed after the commissioners reviewed and considered written and oral reports from staff, public testimony, and other information regarding the isolation valves at Rancho San Luis Rey. Item 4 of that resolution states, no increase shall be effective until, and I'm not going to read all of it, but there's one part that says, a report of which shall be presented to the commission at its future meeting. Okay, I received a notice of compliance that was signed by Leilani Hines and dated August 14th, 2022. She said, it says as of August 11th, 2022. Gee whiz, 1 year perfectly. Everything's fine. Now, we were invited, we were supposed to be at the Manufactured Home Fair Practices Commission meeting when this was signed We were supposed to be there. We were told we would be there. This was a promise. I have it in emails from the chairman, George McNeil, and he was told, and Leilani Hines told him that this would happen. So I just want everyone to be aware that I'm not real happy with Leilani Hines. Thank you.
I don't understand, Mr. Mullen. I was at that meeting, and it was made very, very clear, direction from the Fair Housing Practice Commission, that nothing would happen until the next meeting when this would be looked at, and then if there was proof that that was done, that's when the decision would be made. So I don't understand where the disconnect is.
I don't know either. I'll have to look into it. I think maybe the city manager may have some comments about it.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and council members, I actually have talked to Leilani Hines about this issue that was raised by the residents, and she was of the opinion that the intent was not that the intent was once compliance was obtained, which it was because the water system was approved and inspected and approved, that the effect would be the rate increase would go in effect immediately at that point, and that it would be reported back to the Fair Practices Housing Commission, but not that because of Fair Practices Housing Commission doesn't have the approval authority one way or the other over this action. It's a simple question as to whether or not they are in compliance, and when they were deemed in compliance, then the rate increase immediately kicked in. I mean, if there was some miscommunication, it sounds like there was at the meeting.
Yes, well, first of all, we had to actually have the fire chief there, and he was not there to be able to say, yes, he signed off. I'm sorry, you're done with your time?
Oh, I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Beal?
I have a copy of the resolution. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this was a complete disconnect from because Ms. Hines was there too, and I am really outraged that she would do that in direct opposition to what was said. And the chair actually said, is everything okay with this order? Is staff okay with this order? And she said yes. So I am in complete just dismay and just, I mean, this flies against a direct order. This is a quasi-judicial board. It's not our city council. It is a board, a legal board that makes these decisions. So I'm very concerned that she went against the orders of the Fair Practices Commission.
Well, and just to be clear, when I said that when she went ahead and allowed the rate increase and allowed that to go into effect, it wasn't that she was openly defying the
Yeah, she was just doing what she
thing.
thinks that she has a right to do, but she had no right to do that. I'm sorry, I'm running this meeting, sir. Thank you. Thank you. The next person?
Hello, council members and mayor. Joan Bachman, Seaside Neighborhood. So I've been the past president of OCNA. I've served on many commissions and committees and boards and all sorts of stuff for all sorts of organizations in the city. So, and I've been here 35 years. So the Seaside and Crown Heights neighborhood understands that density and height will go on our major streets. We support this plan, the Smart and Sustainable Corridor Plan. We understand that part of this plan is that our zoning isn't going to change. That's part of the deal. It's stated in the plan. So what we need slow and continuous movement of traffic through our neighborhood. We have between 14 and 17 entrances into our neighborhood. We're happy to keep them all, but we need slow and continuous traffic calming flow. And that will happen through traffic calming, through roundabouts and diversions and bulb outs and perhaps one-way couplets and street parking and things like that. We need protection of the plantable parkways. That's the part between the curb and the sidewalk, not just the part from the curb in. It's a very specific area, and we need to protect that. We need to change a city ordinance to ensure that. And we need more canopy street trees. Regardless of drought situation, you always plant canopy street trees. That is an important thing, and plant native ones. So the other thing we need is we must be able to rely on a skyline plan. So we don't have a 4-story wall or a 7-story wall, like Seagaze. Seagaze is becoming a 7-story wall. We're just filling in the little bits left and that. So we can't have that. We can't have a 4-story wall. We need a skyline plan that goes up and it goes down. And we need to be able to rely on that. So that needs to be happening in the city. And finally, our developers have to hire more architects than lawyers. It was shocking to see an architecture question come up and the lawyers stood up and went through all the rules, everything they maxed out. We cannot accept that. That is not okay. We are intelligent people and we will not accept that. That is the lowest of the low. So we want them to bring solutions. We can have density. We can grow. We can still want to live here. But we have to be smart about it. And if a developer is just going to wallop with lawyers, that's not going to work for us. That's never going to work for us. It won't work on what you heard earlier tonight. It will not work on what we heard on Monday. So we need to set that expectation. What we saw was a building that was torn down in Cabrini Green. Actually, if you look at the layout of the Robert Taylor homes that were torn down, it was better than what they proposed. They made every mistake that those things made. The people gathering at elevators, the lack of a community, and all of that. So we expect more, and we can do it, and we will do it, but we've got to have great architecture.
Thank you.
Sandra Martinez, to be followed by Pablo Arguello, to be followed by Kyle Bright.
Hi, Sandra Martinez again. People have been bombarded with lots of conflicting information in the last 2.5 years.
If KOCT can zoom in on what the gentleman is holding.
Oh.
Right there's fine, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, continue, Sandra.
So naturally, people want to better understand the risks of the COVID shot, especially for their children. I propose a workshop for residents where open and honest dialogue can help people make the best decision for themselves and family without the interference of political and financial issues. This will benefit the community and show a genuine inclusion and awareness of the needs of residents. I want to activate and stimulate inquiry, creativity, and the ability to take information and go, if I knew that, I might have done something else. The COVID vaccine has left a wake of injury and death, so much that the CDC has stopped reporting the adverse event. Pfizer didn't want to release their trial documents for 75 years with good reason. They show numerous injuries and deaths. Some of this information was shown on this October 2020 FDA slide. So they actually knew the dangers in 2020 before the shots were even released to the public. Pfizer conveniently failed to mention to the FDA that 3/4 of the study participants were eliminated from the results in their child trials. Their data actually showed that COVID-vaccinated children were over 300 times more likely to catch COVID than the unvaccinated group. So far, I've personally had 16 friends die from this shot and multiple friends injured. Yesterday, I spoke with another friend who had 4 friends, all men in their early 40s, who had heart attacks since their shot. Over 700 athletes have suddenly died from heart problems, with the average age being 23. School children in some schools have to get their hearts checked before they're allowed to play sports. This is not normal, and we have to ask what changed in 2021 to make all these illnesses occur. We need to address the elephant in the room with an open and honest discussion. Many people thought they were protecting others. They didn't know that Pfizer and Moderna data was misrepresented and probably fraudulent. People didn't know that the shot would neither prevent COVID nor stop transmission, so you couldn't protect anybody by getting the shot. People just didn't know. As a forward-thinking city, in the framework of transparency, Oceanside can be a leader in fostering inquiry and disseminating knowledge on a confusing topic through implementation of a risk-benefit workshop on the COVID-19 vaccine. I'm hoping you please consider this request. Thank you for your time.
Pablo Arguello. We will go on to the next speaker, Kyle Bright.
All right, Kyle Bright, Peacock Hills resident. Jai Jinendra, and good evening, Honorable Council and our dedicated city staff. Before I begin, I want to give a huge thank you in particular to Deputy Mayor Keim and his staff. Y'all have been incredibly responsive and kind, and I genuinely appreciate it. Today marks the first day of Paryushan, and next week, Deliberation will also begin. These two holidays are the holiest time in the year for Jains, members of the Jain religion. During this time, Jains around the world, including here in Oceanside, recommit ourselves to the values of compassion, nonviolence, and forgiveness. In the spirit of Paryushan and Deliberation, I want to extend prayers of peace and good fortune to the council and our whole city. I also want to challenge all my fellow Osiders, regardless of faith, to find it in your heart to be kinder, more patient, and to always choose forgiveness. I love my hometown, and I know we all have it in us to make Oceanside the best city in America. Thank you for giving me this time to spread awareness about our San Diego Jain community, and I'll leave you with a prayer. Namo Siddhanam, Namo Arihantanam, Namo Ayarayanam, Namo Uvajanayam, Namo Loisava Sauhunam, Eso Panchanamakoro, Sava Pava Panasano, Mangala Namcha Savisim, Paramam Have Mangalam. May we grant forgiveness to all living beings. May all living beings grant us forgiveness. May our friendship be with all living beings. May we have no animosity towards any living beings. May the entire universe be blessed. May all beings engage in each other's well-being. May all weaknesses, sicknesses, and faults diminish. And may everyone everywhere be healthy, peaceful, and blissful. If I have harmed anyone tonight, knowingly or unknowingly, in thought, word, or action, I ask for your forgiveness. Michami Dukaram, and good evening.
Thank you. Okay, next is item 31. That is adoption of an ordinance amending Article 30, Section 3032, entitled Affordable Housing Density Bonus of the zoning ordinance to establish revised AHDB regulations conforming to the provisions of Government Code Section 65915 as amended through various Senate and Assembly bills adopted between 2019 and 2021. Second. Okay.
This is the adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside, amending Article 30, Section 3032 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to establish revised affordable housing density bonus regulations conforming to the provisions of Government Code Section 65915, ZA 220001.
Motion approved 4-0. Sanchez abstaining.
Thank you. Any mayor and or council member items? Comments? I see no lights. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting is September 14th, so it's in 3 weeks. After that, it'll be September 28th, and then a real quick turnaround because it'll be 1 week later for the next meeting, and that would be October 5th. So just to let you know, 3 weeks from today is our next council meeting, and then 2 weeks, and then 1 week. All right? So meeting adjourned until September 14th, 3:30 p.m. Thank you very much.